I gave up my career to raise my husband's child. For 15 years, only for them to publicly thank his mistress for making him happy for 8 months. I, 40 female, met my husband James, 42 male, when Ellie, his daughter, was 7 years old. Her mother died when she was 5, and James was straining to juggle his work as a construction supervisor with rearing a small child. We initially met at a mutual friend's housewarming celebration, and he appeared fatigued but dedicated to his daughter. Ellie clung to his thigh throughout the evening, shy in front of the multitude of grown-ups. I offered her some of the dessert I'd brought, and she gradually opened up. After our initial meeting, James requested my phone number. Our first date was at a family-friendly restaurant where Ellie was welcome to join us. I recall thinking it was strange to have a child on a first date, but now I see James was testing how I would connect with his daughter. When I quickly connected with Ellie, he was relieved. She was quiet but intellectual, enjoyed drawing, and clearly needed a mother figure in her life. Over the next few months, we had more family dates than romantic ones. James invited me to Ellie's school plays, soccer events, and even parent-teacher conferences. I did not mind. I had always wanted children, and Ellie's stern little face would light up when she saw me in the crowd. 6 months after we began dating, James asked me to move in with them. Their abode was modest but comfortable. I quit my apartment and my work as a middle school English teacher to care for Ellie. The school where I taught was an hour away from James' place, and it would have been impossible to commute with a little child. Instead, I found a part-time job that paid less but provided me the freedom to be present for Ellie. James worked long hours as a construction supervisor, frequently departing before dawn and returning after Ellie went to bed. I was the one who packed Ellie's lunches with small notes inside, assisted with multiplication tables and spelling tests, attended parent-teacher conferences, and nursed her through stomach viruses and ear infections. I taught her how to braid her hair and how to stand up to the girls who bullied her at school. When Ellie was 8, she began calling me Mom, rather than my first name. The first time it happened, I froze, unsure of James' reaction. But he only grinned and later told me that he was relieved Ellie had found someone to fill the position. Ellie was 9 years old when James and I got married. We held a little ceremony in our backyard for just our family and close friends. Ellie was our flower girl and announced to everyone at the wedding that she was getting a real mom, now. My parents, who were initially suspicious of me marrying a man with a child, eventually warmed around to James after seeing how happy the three of us were together. For 15 years, I devoted myself to our family. I never attempted to replace her original mother. We went to her cemetery every year on her birthday, and I encouraged Ellie to keep a journal of things she'd like to tell her mother if she were still here. On Ellie's 18th birthday, I collected these journal entries into a bound book as a gift, along with images of her growing up that I felt her mother would like seeing. When Ellie was applying to colleges, I took her to campus visits, edited her application essays, and sat up late researching scholarship prospects. James went on several trips when his job schedule allowed, but it was my responsibility to assist her prepare for her future on a daily basis. I did not mind. I was proud of the young woman she was becoming and felt satisfied in my role as her mother. James treated us all to dinner to celebrate Ellie's college acceptance letters. He raised a drink to Ellie's bright future and praised me for being the best mother she could have hoped for. That night, I sobbed happy tears, knowing that despite the hardships, we had successfully built a loving family. When Ellie decided to take a gap year after her second year of college to discover herself, James was sad, but I supported her decision. I assisted her in finding a part-time work at a nearby store and encouraged her to use her leisure time to pursue interests she had not had time for in school. She resumed painting, something she had enjoyed as a child but abandoned in high school when academics became increasingly difficult. Ellie celebrated her 22nd birthday last month. We prepared a large supper at an expensive Italian restaurant downtown that Ellie had always wanted to visit. I made appointments weeks in advance to secure the private dining room with the greatest view of the city. James insisted on inviting some of his coworkers, which seemed unusual given that this was a family gathering, but I didn't question it. I assumed he was proud and wanted to show off our talented daughter. I spent weeks arranging the event, including ordering a special cake with an edible image of Ellie's favorite childhood photo and purchasing a silver bracelet engraved with her birth date and a short message. To my daughter, with love always. I wrapped it in her favorite color paper and enclosed a card with a lengthy note about how proud I was of the woman she had become. The day of the dinner, I picked up the cake, had my hair done, and donned the blue dress Ellie had helped me choose during our last shopping trip together. I arrived at the restaurant early to ensure that everything was perfect. The table decorations, the reserved seating arrangement, and the special dessert menu I had planned with the chef. James and Ellie came together after he picked her up from her friend's place, where she was getting dressed. Ellie hugged me briefly, but she appeared distracted, checking her phone repeatedly. James was similarly remote, checking the door every few minutes as guests arrived. About 20 people went, including my sister and her husband, several of Ellie's high school and college pals, and some James coworkers whom I had never met before. Laura, 35F, in particular, arrived late and made a strong impression. She was dressed in a form-fitting crimson dress and quickly swept the room until she spotted James. She seemed at ease around him from the moment she arrived, laughing loudly at all of his jokes and stroking his arm several times during conversation. I noted this but disregarded it as friendly office behavior, though I did question why I had never heard of her before if they were close colleagues. During supper, I sat at one end of the long table with my sister, while James sat at the other end, beside Laura and across from Ellie. This seating arrangement had not been in my plans. I anticipated our family to sit together, but James had changed them as they arrived, claiming it would allow for greater communication. Throughout the meal, I attempted to engage with the guests around me, but my attention was drawn to the conversation between James, Laura, and Ellie. They were swapping inside jokes and giggling in a way that made me feel strangely alienated from my own daughter's birthday party. After the main meal, the waitress brought out the bespoke cake that I had requested. I stood up to say a few words about Ellie, recalling our first meeting and expressing my admiration for the kind, clever young woman she had grown into. James checked his watch during my brief speech, and Ellie smiled nicely but appeared uneasy. After I sat down, Ellie stood up to make her own speech. She thanked her friends for coming, and then thanked her father for always supporting her financially and allowing her to pursue her aspirations. I waited for her to recognize my position in her life. She glanced directly at Laura and stated, "I'd like to thank Laura for making my father happy over the last 8 months. It's so lovely to see him grin again." The table became utterly silent. Laura gazed down at her plate with a faint, happy smile as James' face became scarlet. I looked about, perplexed, then returned to Ellie, who continued. "I know it's been hard keeping your relationship secret, but I'm glad we don't have to pretend anymore. Laura has been like a friend to me, and I'm happy Dad has found someone who really understands him." Several visitors moved uneasily in their chairs. My sister reached under the table and grasped my hand firmly. I stared at James, who eventually looked at me but couldn't keep my eyes. Laura reached over and squeezed his hand publicly before raising her wineglass to Ellie. "Thanks." In that moment, I realized that my husband had been having an affair with this lady for 8 months, and my stepdaughter, the girl I had nurtured and loved for 15 years, had been aware of it the whole time. Not only had she maintained their secret, but she had picked this public occasion, a celebration I had meticulously arranged, to subject me to humiliation. Without saying anything, I stood up, grabbed my purse, and left the restaurant. I could hear whispers behind me and someone screaming my name, but I didn't turn around. Outside, I noticed I was shaking. I groped for my car keys as footsteps approached from behind me. James screamed out my name as he jogged across the parking lot. When he caught up with me, he grabbed my arm and prevented me from getting into my car. "Let me explain. This isn't how I wanted you to find out." "How long?" I inquired, drawing my arm away from him. "It doesn't matter," he replied, running his hand through his hair. "Things between us haven't been right for years. You must have felt it too." 8 months, according to our daughter," I said. "Our daughter, who you turned against me." James attempted to explain that his connection with Laura just happened after they worked together on a project. He claimed they hadn't intended to fall in love, but he had been sad for years and didn't know what to tell me. He claimed Laura understood him in ways I never did, and that Ellie accepted their relationship because she saw how happy Laura made him. "I was going to tell you after Ellie's birthday," stated the gentleman. "I never wanted you to find out like this." I wondered if the previous 15 years had meant anything to him. He turned his head away. "You've been a good stepmother to Ellie, and I'll always be grateful for that. But Laura and we connect on a different level. She's more aligned with my goals for the future." I got into my car and drove to my sister's house that night, leaving the gift for Ellie in the trunk. My sister arrived home an hour later, bringing my coat that I had left at the restaurant and saying that most of the people had left immediately after my departure, leaving an uneasy celebration that swiftly dissipated. The following day, I returned home while James was at work. I packed my essentials, clothes, personal documents, family photos, and a few sentimental items I couldn't bear to part with. I realized some of Laura's belongings were already in our bedroom. I left my wedding ring on the kitchen counter with a note indicating that I would be filing for divorce. I did not mention Ellie in the note. I couldn't find words to describe the magnitude of the betrayal. Over the next 2 weeks, I stayed with my sister while looking for a new apartment and met with a divorce attorney. I took a leave of absence from my part-time job, unable to concentrate on lesson preparations and student requirements while my personal life was in disarray. My sister assisted me in my search for affordable flats, and I eventually found a one-bedroom place in a different section of town, away from the area where I might run across James or Ellie. Throughout those weeks, James called and texted incessantly, alternately apologizing for how I found out and blaming me for being emotionally distant during our marriage. He felt I concentrated too much on Ellie and not enough on him. That I'd ceased being the lady he married. That I did not encourage his professional objectives. With each message, his tone became more accusing, as if his affair was my responsibility. I didn't react to the majority of his communications, instead corresponding with my lawyer about practical things about our shared finances and the house. After a particularly unpleasant voicemail in which he described me as frigid and cruel, I eventually blocked his number. Ellie also called multiple times, leaving voicemails in which she apologized but stated that she was only trying to encourage her father's pleasure. In one message, she explained that Laura had first confided in her about her attraction to James, making Ellie feel special and included in an adult secret. Later messages became defensive, with Ellie claiming that she didn't understand why I was overreacting and that these things happen in families all the time. I didn't answer any of her texts because I couldn't reconcile the daughter I raised with the young woman who had so openly deceived me. 3 weeks after moving out, I got a text from an unknown number. It was Ellie, texting on a friend's phone. "I need to talk to you urgently. Please. It's important." Against my better judgment and my sister's advice, I agreed to meet her in a little diner near my new apartment the next day. When I got to the diner, I scarcely recognized her. Her normally immaculate appearance was disheveled. She looked like she hadn't slept for days. Her clothing was crumpled, her hair was dirty and hurriedly pulled back, and black circles surrounded her eyes. She was nervously shredding a paper napkin and burst into tears when she saw me. I sat across from her, keeping my emotional distance despite her obvious distress. When the waitress arrived, I ordered a coffee I didn't want just to give Ellie time to settle herself. When the waitress left, Ellie dried her eyes with the shredded napkin and started speaking quickly between sobs. Ellie stated that Laura had moved into our house a few days after I departed. She had reclaimed the master bedroom, replaced family portraits with her own artwork, and began remodeling the living room without consulting James or Ellie. Laura announced she was pregnant with James's kid 2 weeks later, during a dinner at which Ellie was already feeling uneasy in what had previously been her family home. According to Ellie, James appeared stunned by the news but quickly recovered, toasting to their new beginning. After Laura went to bed that night, James summoned Ellie to his home office. He informed her that they intended to turn her bedroom into a nursery and that she needed to move out. He advised she take the modest guest room in the basement if she wished to remain. When Ellie objected, pointing out that the basement room lacked sufficient windows and that she had lived in her room since childhood, James reminded her she was now an adult who needed to support their new family. He reminded her that she had been supportive of his relationship with Laura from the start and questioned why she was now being tough. He claimed I was being selfish. Ellie informed me that he believed Laura required less stress during her pregnancy and that her attitude was creating a toxic environment. Ellie had relocated her necessary possessions to a friend's apartment the next day, believing it to be temporary until she could find her own place. However, her part-time retail job did not give enough income to pay for an apartment in our pricey city, and she had missed far too many shifts during the crisis. When she got back to work, her manager informed her that she had been replaced. She now had no income, no permanent place to live, and her friend's patience had worn thin after a week of couch surfing. "I tried applying for other jobs," Ellie told me, "but I keep breaking down during interviews. I can't focus. I can't sleep. I don't know what to do." I sat there, stunned, listening to her narrative and watched tears trickle down the face of the girl I had raised, the young woman who now appeared hopelessly lost. After she finished speaking, I inquired, "Did you know about their affair the entire time?" Ellie nodded slowly before looking down at the table. "Laura told me first," she confessed. "She came to the store where I worked about 8 months ago. She bought me lunch and told me she and Dad had feelings for each other. She said she wanted my blessing before things got serious." Ellie went on to tell how Laura had formed a connection with her, taking her shopping and her extravagant gifts that James could never afford on his own wage. Laura had told Ellie that they will soon be a real family, and that I was preventing her father from experiencing true happiness. According to Laura, James had chosen me because he needed help parenting Ellie, but now that Ellie was older, he deserved a chance at true love. "She made it sound romantic," Ellie commented quietly. "Like Dad had sacrificed his happiness for years and finally deserved something for himself." Ellie acknowledged that she had helped them plan their encounters, including lying to me about James's location when he was actually with Laura. She had removed suspicious text messages from James's phone when he left it unattended, and she had once diverted my attention with a staged issue regarding a college assignment so James could meet Laura for a weekend getaway. Laura said you would understand eventually, Ellie added. She said most modern families go through transitions like this, and we would all be friends someday. I took a long breath and reminded Ellie of everything I'd given up for her, including my full-time teaching job, independence, and 15 years of my own life. I pointed out that I had attended every school function, but James had missed the majority of them due to work. I had taught her to drive, spending hours in parking lots and on quiet streets, while James said he lacked the patience. Ellie sobbed harder with each example, nodding to acknowledge the shared memories. And how did you repay that devotion? I asked. You lied to my face for 8 months. You helped your father deceive me. You sat in our home, eating meals I cooked, accepting gifts I bought, all while knowing that the two people I loved most in the world were betraying me. I told Ellie that her betrayal hurt more than James since I never expected her to choose me over her biological father. I had always taught her that blood links were vital and sacred, but I raised her as if she were my own daughter, with all of my maternal love. And she had viewed me as disposable, a placeholder to be dumped when no longer required. Then I stood up, paid for my untouched coffee, and told Ellie that she had made her decision 8 months earlier to help her father cheat. I will not be helping you now. But where am I supposed to go? Ellie inquired, her voice increasing with panic. I have nowhere to live, no job. Dad won't take my calls anymore, and Laura has changed the locks on the house. I tried to get my remaining things yesterday, and they wouldn't let me in. That's not my problem, I said. You're an adult, Ellie, figure it out. Ellie shouted out to me as I walked out of the diner, saying that she had made a mistake and that James had twisted her. She claimed Laura had promised they would all live happily together, but she had no idea he would forsake her once she was no longer helpful to their narrative. Please, she sobbed as I approached the door. You're the only mother I've ever really known. I paused, resting my hand on the door handle. I recognized not the young woman who had betrayed me, but the 7-year-old girl who had previously clung to my knee during thunderstorms. Then I remembered her expression when she thanked Laura at the birthday dinner, and I pushed the door open without looking back. That night, I blocked Ellie's phone number and all of her social media accounts. I also banned the phone numbers of mutual acquaintances who could attempt to contact me on her behalf. I changed my email address and informed my office that I would not be accepting personal visitors. 2 days later, my sister informed me that Ellie had written on social media about being homeless and betrayed by her family. The post made vague references to mistakes and regrets while portraying her as the victim of circumstances beyond her control. Several relatives have subsequently contacted me, claiming that I am being overly harsh and that Ellie is still young and made a mistake. They say I've raised her for 15 years and shouldn't forsake her now, no matter what she has done. Part of me feels bad about Ellie's circumstances. She is young, and her father has plainly exploited her with the help of his lover. I know how convincing James can be when he wants something, and how easy he can make others feel guilty when they disagree with him. I saw this pattern throughout our marriage but always made excuses for him. But another part of me can't forgive her active role in wrecking my marriage and our family. She did more than simply keep their affair a secret. She also aided it by interfering and fabricating alibis. She watched as I continued to love and care for her despite knowing I was being duped. And then she publicly insulted me on her birthday in front of friends and family, seemingly without remorse, until the scenario backfired on her. My sister thinks I should assist Ellie locate a place to stay or lend her money for a security deposit. She claims that, despite everything, I am the closest thing Ellie has to a mother. But I doubt I can encounter her again without remembering her betrayal. So, AITA for refusing to assist my stepdaughter after she helped my husband cheat on me and is now dealing with the consequences of her actions. Edit. Thank you for your responses. To clarify several points that people have inquired about. Yes, I legally adopted Ellie when she was 11, so I am her adoptive mother, not simply stepmother. Ellie is now taking a gap year from college. She has college loans and a little scholarship, but she intended to work to save for next year's expenditures. James and I do not have biological children together. I was unable to have children because of medical difficulties uncovered after our marriage. The house is in both of our names, but I left because I couldn't take being there with the memories. My lawyer is in charge of dividing assets. Many people inquired about Ellie's grandparents. James' parents died many years ago, and his former in-laws, Ellie's maternal grandparents, relocated to another country after their daughter died and had little touch with the family. Update 1. It's been a week since I last posted. My lawyer informed me that James wanted to keep the house because Laura is pregnant, and he offered me a lower settlement than I was entitled to. I refused his offer. Meanwhile, a mutual acquaintance informed me that Ellie is now staying with one of James' relatives, who contacted her after reading her social media posts. Update 2. 2 weeks after my original post, I received a handwritten letter from Ellie yesterday. She asked for neither money nor a place to stay. Instead, she published a thorough narrative of how Laura had slowly eased her way into their lives, bringing Ellie things and behaving like a friend while continually pointing out my apparent failings as a wife and mother. Ellie said that she now understands Laura targeted her as a ploy to get to James, and she truly regrets betraying me. She concluded the letter by stating that she does not expect forgiveness but wanted me to know that she recognizes the gravity of her mistake. I have not responded to the letter yet. I'm still absorbing things and working on finalizing my divorce. My lawyer thinks James is now making a more acceptable deal because I have not backed down. Final update. It's been a month since my initial post. The divorce case is moving along. James finally consented to a fair asset distribution after my lawyer threatened to summon Laura for a deposition. I finally contacted Ellie last week after getting her second letter. We met for lunch. Ellie apologized again and admitted that she couldn't erase the damage she had done. She found a tiny apartment with a roommate and will start a new job next week. She did not ask for financial assistance again. I informed Ellie that I needed more time before I could contemplate restoring our relationship. Our trust has been entirely shattered, and I'm not sure it can be mended. I did, however, provide her with the contact information for a therapist who could assist her in processing what had occurred. Several people have asked me if I regret leaving the restaurant that night without confronting James and Laura openly. I do not. Maintaining my dignity was more essential than causing a scene. The fact that their new happy family fell apart so swiftly demonstrates that relationships formed on lies are rarely sustainable. Thank you to everyone who offered their opinions and advice. I am still recuperating, but I am also moving on with my life. I spent 2 years loving someone who never saw me as a priority, giving her everything but only receiving disregard and exploitation. So, I've been keeping this story under wraps for a while, but now it's time to share it all. Warning, this is going to be a long one. Looking back, I realize I was the world's biggest sucker. The clues that my relationship was a disaster were everywhere, but I was too love-blind to notice any of them. I know, it's classic simple behavior. Melissa took over my entire life from the start. I am 27, she is 25, and we met at a friend's housewarming party. I'm generally the cautious type, never the guy who rushes into relationships without considering things through. I've always been the type of man who takes his time and considers the pros and drawbacks. But with Melissa? Holy! She had this way of drawing me in that I couldn't stop. She wasn't even trying, which is what made it so dangerous. She made me laugh like no one other. She had a weird-ass sense of humor that simply worked with me. She could make even the most ordinary Tuesday night feel like a vacation. She was also really hot, which helped. The type of girl who makes your pals email you, "Damn, bro, how'd you land her?" after meeting her for the first time. So, because I was so darn into her, I went all in. Like full throttle, no holding back. I always placed her first. It didn't matter if I was working 12-hour hours that week or had significant business to attend to. If she needed me, I dropped everything and showed up. That promotion I was looking for? I declined because she wanted me to go on a weekend trip with her and her pals. What about my closest friend's bachelor party? She left early since she wasn't feeling well and asked me to come over. I also paid attention to all the minor details about her favorite meal, her coffee preferences, which movies made her weep, anything with dogs, and which side of the bed she needed to sleep on. I organized surprise dates and gave her thoughtful gifts, not only on birthdays, but on random Wednesdays to demonstrate that I was thinking about her. I thought of her first. I practically planned my entire life around her, my decisions, my time, and my future plans. Every single thing revolved around her. I even looked at engagement rings, believing she was the one. And for a long time, I assumed she was just as invested in us. This was the lie I kept telling myself. What's the cold truth? She never exhibited the same zeal I threw into that stupid-ass relationship. She just adored being mine and receiving all of the attention. When we initially started dating, everything was great. We had been together for nearly 2 years before everything fell apart. She moved into my house about a year ago, which I actually own and pay the mortgage on myself. I paid everything: mortgage, bills, groceries, even her auto insurance and cell phone bill. I even helped her with school payments. She was finishing up her degree and worked part-time at this coffee shop, so I assumed I was investing in our future together. It's only temporary, I reminded myself. Once she graduates and gets a real job, things will even out. Spoiler alert, they never did. At first, it was very amazing. Melissa was humorous, charming, and energetic. We spent weekends exploring new places, binge-watching series, and simply having fun together. But then things began to change. And I was too dumb to notice. It's incredible how many red flags you can miss when you're wearing rose-colored glasses. For example, despite receiving money from her parents, she never volunteered to pay for anything. Or how she'd talk about her house and kitchen, when I was the one who was paying for everything. Or how she'd make tiny remarks about my pals being dull or my work being too corporate while happily spending the money from that corporate job. What is the worst part? She enjoyed telling everyone how amazing a boyfriend I was. She'd write these long-ass messages on Instagram about how blessed she was and how I was the best boyfriend ever, along with photographs of the presents I bought her or the trips I paid for. Her pals thought I was awesome. My buddies thought she was incredible. Everyone believed we were the perfect pair. What about behind closed doors? That's where the truth resided. And I was too blind to notice it. I continued offering justifications for her. When she would cancel arrangements with my family to spend time with her pals, I would convince myself that she is simply independent. When she would spend hundreds of dollars on clothes yet forget to contribute to groceries, I'd imagine she was still figuring out adulthood. When she rolled her eyes at things that were important to me, I convinced myself that we simply had different interests. I was creating excuses for her because I did not want to confront the truth. That perhaps, just maybe, I loved her more than she loved me. And it's not like she was some evil mastermind. She wasn't twirling her villain mustache or planning how to use me. She took, and I gave. Over and over again. It became our dynamic. She expected me to offer everything, while I anticipated little in return. That's the messed up part about love, you can sometimes convince yourself that's how it should be. But the warning indicators weren't immediately obvious. Just minor things I decided to ignore because I didn't want to accept the fact that I was being played like a fiddle. Melissa gradually became more distant. Not particularly obvious, just minor details that I overlooked. For example, she'd cease waiting for me to have dinner once I texted that I was on my way home. Or how she'd be staring at her phone the entire time we were together, chuckling at whatever she was looking at and scarcely acknowledging anything I said. I'd be talking about my day, look up, and notice her gaze had not left her screen once. She then began to go out much more frequently, 3 to 4 times per week. She'd say she was hanging out with the girls or had a study group, and I didn't take it seriously at first. I mean, she is entitled to her own life, right? I'm not a controlling boyfriend. However, it quickly developed into a pattern. Weekends, weeknights, random evenings, I'd come home from a 10-hour shift, eager to spend time with her, only to discover an empty house and a half-assed text stating, "Out with friends, don't wait up." When she returned home, she was either still on her phone or went straight to bed, stating she was exhausted. No. How was your day? No hugging, no love, nothing. What went wrong? I was still doing everything around the house, including cooking, cleaning, laundry, food shopping, and paying all bills. Meanwhile, she was rent-free, bill-free, and could do anything she wanted whenever she wanted. And I simply let it happen. I tried bringing it up once, remained calm, and told her I felt we weren't connecting anymore. She waved it off with some nonsense like, "I just need some me time, you're overthinking it." Overthinking? I was working more than 50 hours per week to support this relationship. And was I the problem for wanting to feel connected? But I did not want to appear clinging or controlling. So, like a moron, I dropped it. It worsened from there. On Saturdays, I would wake up to find she had already left. She'd text hours later, saying she was with the girlfriends, or just say something generic like "out." I stopped asking for information because she would become defensive and act as if I was grilling her. "Why don't you trust me?" she'd demand. And I'd back off quickly. Classic manipulation. But I couldn't see it then. And she never went the extra mile for me, as I did for her. I'd organize these nice dates, and she'd say, "That's sweet," but never reciprocated. When I was stressed at work, my boss was an absolute nightmare. She'd text, "I'm here for you," but never show up. When my father became ill and had to be hospitalized, she went to brunch with her friends rather than accompanying me. "Hospitals freak me out," she said. I remember one time when I spent about a month organizing her birthday. She made appointments at a posh restaurant she had been wanting to try. She got tickets to see her favorite band. She even arranged with her friends for this whole surprise affair. It cost me nearly $1,000 all in. But I felt it was worthwhile to see her happy. Do you know what she did for my birthday a month later? She bought me a $50 Amazon gift card and spent most of supper texting her buddies. When I expressed disappointment, she had the audacity to inquire, "What? I got you a present." She stated it with a pouty expression, as if she deserved a standing ovation for remembering my birthday. Meanwhile, I'm standing there holding a gift card with the digital receipt still attached, indicating she purchased it that morning. Really thoughtful, babe. Our connection was extremely unequal. Looking back, if I was even 10 minutes late getting home when she wanted to go somewhere, she'd be upset for hours. But she could disappear for the entire evening without warning, and I was expected to be fine with it. If I wanted to spend time with my guys, I had to tell her a week in advance. She'd make plans with her buddies while we were doing something else, then just bounce. I started seeing other strange things too. How her girls' nights always seemed to include a large number of boys in the photos she was tagged in. She'd always place her phone away from me when texting. How she'd get all dressed up, full makeup, gorgeous outfit, for study group. How she'd arrive home at 2 a.m., smelling of wine and cologne that wasn't mine. I started getting these knots in my gut whenever she went out. I had a strong sensation that something was wrong. But I continued pushing it down, telling myself I was overly paranoid. What irritated me was that all of my friends noticed it. Kyle approached me at a BBQ and asked if I was okay, as Melissa seemed uninterested. And I defended her. I was truly angry at him. I told him he did not comprehend our relationship. My sister informed me straight out that Melissa was using me as an ATM. And I didn't speak to her for 2 weeks after that. That's how much I was in denial. I was paying for this chick's entire life, housing, food, bills, and even her tuition, while she treated me like an irritating roommate she just had to be nice to on occasion. And I could not see it. Perhaps I didn't want to see it. Because seeing it would imply admitting I had been duped. That the relationship in which I had devoted 2 years, thousands of dollars, and all of my emotional energy was a fraud. That is a hard pill to take. However, reality finally smacks you in the face. My friend once asked me whether our relationship ended abruptly or gradually. The truth is, it was both. Like a frog in gently boiling water, I had no idea I was being roasted alive until it was too late. Melissa had always been somewhat selfish. However, it took a long time to register. Because she would still do the bare minimum of relationship activities. She still claimed I loved you and would occasionally do something nice for me, as long as it didn't bother her too much. When other individuals were around, she continued to act as if we were a team. But behind closed doors, things only got worse. Then our plans lost their meaning for her. We'd agree to watch a movie on Friday night, but by Friday, she'd forgotten and made plans with her pals. When I reminded her of our intentions, she sighed heavily, as if I was being a burden. "Can't we just do it tomorrow instead?" she'd ask, already dressed to go out. And when we were together, which was becoming increasingly rare, she'd act as if being with me was a task she had to complete. She'd frequently check the clock, use her phone, or mention how much fun she was missing out on. And when I called her out on her attitude, she would gaslight me. "You're too sensitive. It's all in your head." Or, my personal favorite, "You're being controlled." She was a master of the quiet treatment. If I did something to irritate her, didn't get the exact brand of whatever she requested. I questioned her about arriving home at 3 a.m. I asked her to chip in for groceries on occasion. She'd get chilled. Would not speak to me. Would not look at me. I would pretend I wasn't even in the room. It could last several days. And I'd have to apologize simply to make it stop. Even when I had not done anything wrong. It was exhausting. My mental health was deteriorating. I could not sleep. Could not concentrate at work. I was constantly on edge, wondering which version of her I would find when I got home. Will she even be there? Would she speak to me? Or will I be ignored for some insignificant infraction? I started having persistent stress headaches. I lost weight because my appetite was shattered. My work performance suffered, which just added to my stress. Because I needed the job. To keep a roof over her head, and the vehicle she drove, in her name. Throughout it all, she kept talking. Never once was I asked whether I was okay. I never realized I was disintegrating at the seams. As long as the bills were paid, she could do whatever the heck she wanted. I could as well have been a ghost. That's when the wheels started turning in my mind. The internal struggle started. I started asking myself difficult questions. Was I really going to continue living like this? Allowing someone to deplete my emotional, mental, and financial resources? Was I being weak by staying? Or is it selfish to consider leaving? For a while, I fought it. I told myself I'd be a jerk for walking out. That partnership requires effort, patience, and sacrifice. But even the strongest man can only carry so much dead weight until it draws him down. And I was finished drowning. I had already checked out. So I started thinking about my departure strategy. How can I leave without destroying the entire place? Do I start small and gradually pull back? Or take off the band-aid and walk? Would she care? Is it only my pride that hurts? I did not want to be the man who quit up. But I also wasn't going to be the idiot that stuck around a losing game. What's the truth? I was already halfway there in my head. My body simply hadn't caught up yet. Then came the darkness, which propelled me the rest of the way. It wasn't a dramatic explosion. There's no catching her in the act. There was no screaming match. No smashing doors. If I had to wager, cheating was undoubtedly involved. But no, the item that opened my eyes was small, simple. But it hit harder than a slap in the face. It was the type of event that did more than just sting, it makes a mark. It was Friday night. I had been grinding all week. Late nights at the workplace, wrapping out a major project. Exhausted wasn't the right term, but I wasn't going to crash on the couch like some beaten down person. Nah. I had one final move to make. I was not searching for quality time. I wanted to flip the script. To let her know, without stating it explicitly, that I had already psychologically exited this relationship. I entered the house at 6, dropped my keys on the counter, and heard her music screaming from the bedroom. I already knew what it meant. She was preparing to leave. Again? Another night with the ladies. According to the Instagram photographs, there were also some strange males. 3 weekends in a row. The third time, I'd be left sitting alone in my own damn house, like an afterthought. I knocked once before pushing open the bedroom door. She was standing in front of the mirror in nothing but her underpants, doing cosmetics as if she were preparing to walk the runway. Normally, I would have paused to savor the scenery. Not tonight. Tonight, I was not here to admire anything. Hey, I said, my tone smooth and casual. Just another guy looking to spend the night in, right? We were thinking we could stay in tonight. Order some food, throw on a movie, just chill. Been a while since we had a night to ourselves. She did not even look at me. I didn't pause. Did not flinch. I just kept applying mascara as if I wasn't standing there. Can't. Promised the girls I'd meet them at Ashley's. We're hitting that new club downtown after. The girls. Always the girls. It's funny how the girls' Instagram images had more male buddies than a frat house. I kept my voice quiet and my posture relaxed, leaning against the doorframe as if I had all the time in the world. Yeah, I thought maybe you'd want to catch up. We've barely crossed paths all week. I come home and you're either gone or heading out the door. She eventually looked at me in the mirror. Her eyes flickered with annoyance. It's not my fault you work so much. So there it was. That was a small poke. She understood why I was working so hard. To keep the house. To pay for her car. The bills. She didn't even acknowledge that all she had came as a result of me busting my ass. But sure, let's toss that back at me. I nodded slowly. Allow the silence to continue for a second. I continued. Relationships take work too. Just thought maybe we should make time for that. That is when she turned. Mascara wand in hand. I felt like I was just an annoyance in her night. She then dropped the line that sealed it. You're not my priority right now, okay? I have other things going on. The way she hurled those remarks at me was casual as hell. As if she were informing me we were out of milk. While applying mascara for some other dude to enjoy. The chef's kiss of disdain. Absolute masterclass in how to end a relationship in 10 words or less. 2 years. It comes down to just one line. The entire relationship boils down to me not even being on her list. I did not move. I didn't say anything for a moment. Just standing there. Allowing it to land. Allowing her to hear how quiet I could be when I was finished caring. What did you just say? I inquired. Not because I didn't hear it, but I did want her to hear it again. I wanted her to really consider what she had just said to me. She sighed, returning her gaze to the mirror, her tone casual and dismissive. Don't be so dramatic. I already have plans. We can hang out tomorrow or whatever. And that was all. The moment. The last nail. After all I'd done. After each time, I put her first. I was not even an afterthought. I served as a placeholder. An ATM with a heartbeat. I did not yell, did not argue. That would have given her excessive credit. I just stood there, looking at her reflection. I'm wondering how the hell I let things get this far. How I let her believe she could walk all over me and I'd just keep taking it. But that was the last time she spoke to me as if I were nothing. Fine, I answered in a firm voice. Calm. Go have fun. And I intended it. Go have some fun, Melissa. Enjoy it while you can. Because of the man standing in front of you. He's already left. I will, she responded. Not even picking up on my tone. She simply kept applying her makeup, as if we had been talking about the weather, not the end of our relationship. She departed around 20 minutes later. Did not even say goodbye properly. I just yelled, later, as the front door slammed. I stood in the kitchen, listening as her car pulled out of the driveway. I felt a strange sense of serenity rush over me. It felt like something had finally clicked into place. I took a soda and sat on the couch. Just thinking. I'm replaying the past few months in my thoughts. All the times she had brushed me off. All the girls' nights that strangely featured guys I had never met. Throughout my own relationship, I felt like an afterthought. I took out my phone and began scrolling through our text history. It was an eye-opener. Page after page of me checking in. Asking about her day. Telling her I miss her. Making plans. What were her responses? Always short. Often, hours later. We frequently canceled or changed our arrangements. When she was going through a difficult time, I would write her paragraph-long letters of encouragement and affection. She'd respond with the BBX, or a thumbs-up emoji. It was all fine there. In black and white. The evidence of her not giving a damn had been in my pocket the entire time. Frustrated, I locked my phone and tossed it onto the couch. But boredom drew me back in. I opened Instagram and scrolled idly through the tales, attempting to numb the frustration that was burning beneath my skin. I watched one of Melissa's pals post videos of their night out. Dim lights, loud music, people laughing, drinking, and grinding on the dance floor. The entire atmosphere of the place screamed pandemonium. My thumb paused for a second before swiping up to send a casual message. Is Melissa having a good time? I asked. No emotion. There's no edge. Just a basic question. A few minutes later, the friend responded. Yeah, she's great, totally vibing tonight. Cool. I left it to read. Then the following story appeared. And there she was. Melissa. On the dance floor. Grinding on a guy with his shirt half open and abs on full display. She was giggling, her arms wrapped around his neck. As if she did not have a boyfriend at home. As if she didn't have someone to pay her bills, cover her tuition, and maintain a roof over her head. And with that, the switch switched. I locked my phone, tossed it on the sofa table and lay back, taking it all in. I was not going to argue. I was not going to blow up her phone or have a big confrontation. What's the point? She had already made her decision long before tonight. All that remained was for me to make my own. About an hour later, I heard the key enter the door. She stumbled in, giggling at something on her phone, with no care in the world. She didn't notice me sitting there in the dark lighting. Have fun? I inquired, my tone calm and steady. She jumped and almost dropped her handbag. Jesus, you scared me. She laughed, but it was forced. She appeared disheveled, with smudged makeup and tangled hair. Why are you sitting in the dark like some creep? I shrugged. Just thinking. She began going toward the bedroom, brushing me off like she always did. Like I was a roommate she tolerated. Thinking about what? She asked, looking over her shoulder. I saw her lean back, arms stretched across the couch, calm and cool. The kind of tranquility that comes when you've chosen to stop playing games. About how easy it is to lose respect for someone, I muttered. Not bitter? Just facts. She paused, looking back. What's that supposed to mean? I did not move, didn't blink. Nothing, just an observation. She sighed, irritated. Can we not do this right now? I'm tired and drunk and I just want to go to bed. Yeah, I replied, standing up, my voice calm but sharp. Bet you are. All that hands-on cardio must be wearing you out. This made her freeze. She blinked, confusion flashing in her eyes. What are you talking about? I smiled. You know what I'm talking about, Melissa. She opened her mouth, prepared to lie. I saw it on her face. Prepared to tell me, just fun, just friends. But I did not give her a chance. I didn't want her justifications. I didn't need her phony tears or pathetic apologies. I was done with the game. I'm not in the mood for stories, I replied plainly. Go to bed. She hesitated, as if she were waiting for me to start a battle. Because she realized she was doing something wrong out there. But there wouldn't be one. She no longer deserved that energy. She was not worth it. After that night, I did not simply stop caring. I cut the cord. Hard. I went full ghost mode in my own home. I didn't want to waste energy on someone who had already shown me where I stood in her life. Texting during the daytime? Dead. Are you asking about her classes? Done. Picking up her favorite snacks? Making dinner? Folding her laundry? Asking where she was going or when she'd return? Over. Why bother? If I wasn't her priority, she certainly wasn't going to be mine. She no longer deserved that version of me. But I did not stop there. I began severing the ties that bound her to the life I was paying for. I logged into each account. Car insurance? Gone. Phone bill? Gone. Her streaming services? Gone. I cut her off cleanly. No more free rides on my dime. I wasn't going to pay for her nights out, intoxicated Uber rides, or endless shopping sprees while she pretended to be single in public and treated me as an afterthought in private. What about her tuition payments? Cancelled. Did she want independence? She was going to receive it. At first, she didn't even notice it. She was too preoccupied with her own affairs to realize that her personal butler and private banker had gone off duty. However, after a week, she began to notice the shift. I noticed that the man who had formerly made her the center of his life no longer orbited her. Initially, the stares she gave me were subtle. Confused. Testing. She seemed to be trying to figure out what was wrong but couldn't quite pinpoint it. "You've been quiet lately," she murmured one night, sitting at the far end of the couch, her gaze shifting between mine and her phone. I shrugged without looking up. "Have I? Yeah. Is something wrong?" I let the silence continue. Then he gazed up at her, calm, unconcerned. "Nothing that matters to you?" Her brows pushed together. "What's that supposed to mean?" I cocked my head and smirked faintly. "It means exactly what it sounds like. If it's not your priority, why would you care?" Her eyes widened as the knowledge struck her. I was responding to her own words. It landed harder than she imagined. "Are you seriously still upset about that?" "It was just a comment, I didn't mean it." "Sure," I replied, standing up. "Whatever you say." And with that, I walked out of the room. I am not disturbed at all. She was left sitting there, puzzled and uncomfortable in the solitude. I maintained the pressure throughout the next few days. Or rather, I kept the pressure off. I was just absent. Physically there. But I mentally checked out. She'd try to strike up a conversation, and I'd respond coldly, with one word. She would suggest that we go out, and I would shrug. "Nah. Busy." She'd ask whether I was mad, and I'd simply answer, "Nope. Just respect your priorities." When she realized her phone bill hadn't gone through. When her vehicle insurance company contacted her instead of me. When she tried to connect onto Netflix, she learned it was no longer her account. She said nothing at first. Just went silent. Confused? The kind of disorientation that sets in when someone finds the safety net they once took for granted has vanished. Watching her squirm was nearly enjoyable. Confusion turned to frustration. Frustration turns to desperation. She was unused to being ignored. I wasn't used to not being the focus of my own universe. The more I backed away, the harder she reached. Meanwhile, I focused on myself. I go to the gym every day after work. It wasn't because I wanted to appear well for her. But I'd had enough of pretending to care. I started going out with my boys again, the ones she labeled uninteresting because they didn't fit into her small social circle. I got back into my activities. I spent my evenings doing anything I wanted for once. I wasn't living for her anymore, I was living for myself. And damn, it felt great. Then, like clockwork, she began trying. Going home earlier. My favorite takeout is suddenly being brought back. Asking about my day and actually waiting for a response. Dropping small compliments. Trying to snuggle up with me on the couch. Unfortunately, it was too late. I had seen enough. We've heard enough. She was just catching up, and I wasn't on the field anymore. But I allowed her to keep trying. Let her sweat. Allow her to experience what it was like to reach out to someone who did not respond. One night, she snapped. She came at me with tears in her eyes and a shaky voice, as if she were the victim. "I don't understand what's happening," she told me. "Why are you being like this?" My expression remained bland. Cold. "You made it clear, Melissa. I'm not your priority. You've got other things going on." I shrugged. "So now, I'm focusing on my priorities. And honestly, you're not one of them." Her face crumbled. "But that's not fair. I said one thing, one time, and now you're punishing me for it?" I laughed. Hard. Not because it was humorous. But that was pathetic. "One thing, Melissa? You've been showing me I wasn't a priority for months. Every time you blew me off. Every time you took advantage of me. Every time you looked at me like I was just there, like I didn't matter. I went closer, my voice low and firm. I paid for this house. Paid your car insurance. Paid for the food you eat, the bills that keep the lights on, your damn tuition. And all I got in return? You're not my priority. Well, message received, loud and clear. She broke. The tears came quickly, messy. As they always did when she felt control was slipping from her grasp. I didn't mean it like that, she shouted, her voice shaking. I was stressed. I wasn't thinking. I love you. But I was not buying it. I stood there, watching her fall apart. I felt nothing. Simply cold clarity. She could cry rivers, but I was not going to drown in them again. In that instant, the plan came together. I was not going to fight. I would let her weep. Let her believe she still had time to rectify it. And then I'd disappear. Quiet. Clean. She was not worth the drama. Did she want me to be an option? I'd teach her how it feels when a choice simply evaporates. The next day, I awoke at 5 a.m. I packed my essentials. And bounced. By sunrise, I was gone. No note. There's no explanation, just a text. You don't have to worry about me being your priority anymore. I'm gone. And I simply disappeared. She blew up my phone. Calls. Texts. Did not pick up. Didn't respond. Silence is golden. It was about time she realized that. First, she smacked me with some classics. Are you serious? You're being so dramatic. This is childish. Nah. What's childish is expecting me to stick around after being regarded as a side goal in her life. Then followed desperation. Let's talk. Please, don't do this. I didn't mean it. Yes, you did. And now, I am done. I stayed at my friend Kyle's place for a while, locked down a new flat, and went into full ghost mode. We changed our passwords. Cut her off from my credit card. Informed her parents that tuition is now their responsibility. It felt like erasing old files from a hard disk. Clean. Necessary. Satisfying. Freedom struck differently. No more devoting energy to a one-sided relationship. A month later, mutual acquaintances informed me that she was spiraling. I'm having trouble making my auto payments. Dropping courses? Couch surfing? Her parents advised her to grow up before returning home. I didn't feel anything. But what about 4 months? She showed up at my new location. I have no idea how she found the address. She appeared devastated. Skinny. Tired. All that confidence she used to flaunt? Gone. Please, she asked. I've changed. I miss you. I messed up. I just stared. Yeah. You did. Can we try again? I'll prove it to you. You're my priority now. Priority? I asked, twisting my head as if I were truly perplexed. What are you talking about, Melissa? You stopped being on my radar a long time ago. I don't even remember what it felt like to care. She broke down. Crying. Begging. She made bogus promises that she would be different and change. What about me? I felt as if the weight had already been removed. She was the only one still clinging on. You should go, I responded calmly. Almost bored. There's nothing for you here, not anymore. I closed the door. Her sobbing from the other side, not my concern anymore. And damn, it felt great, freeing. It was like removing a weight I had no idea I was carrying. Several weeks later, I met somebody new. A badass girl. A real one. Genuine. Thoughtful. Actually understands how to be a partner. She says I am a priority, and she means it. Demonstrates it. Every day. A game changer. Word got out. Melissa listened. She went crazy. I began showing up where I might be. Texting me from a random number after I blocked her previous one. Desperation looks ugly on everyone. I ignored it. I was finished with her games. Last I heard, she dropped out of school. I moved back home. What about her life? A mess. Mine. Better than ever. It's funny how it works. She believed I was replaceable. It turns out she was. And now? She'll have to live with that. People ask me if I regret it. If I ever feel tempted to reach out. Nah. Leaving was the best decision I've ever made. Because when someone shows you that they do not care, believe them, and then make absolutely sure they are no longer your concern. My family favored my sister, taking her on a trip while leaving me behind. A stranger gave me $50,000 and revealed she was our biological mother. She thought about it for a few minutes before saying she wanted them to take her and two of her friends to Hawaii as a gift. My parents immediately agreed, and Alex rushed to her room to rejoice and inform her friends. While she was in her room, I asked my parents if I was going with them or not, because I wasn't sure. Usually, when we go on family vacations, they bring me along, but because this was a gift for Alex, I wasn't sure if my presence was essential or appreciated. She doesn't like me too much. I am fine with that. I'm not a fan of her either because, despite being twins, she is so different from me. She's spoiled, haughty, and extremely insulting to everyone. Nobody who attended school with us liked her. Her gang of pals appear to think she's great, but I believe this is simply because they are similar to her. Anyway, when I asked my parents whether I'd be joining them, they had to think about it for a while. I knew right away that the answer would be negative, because if they had to think about it, it couldn't be because they wanted to take me with them. They presumably had already decided against it and were simply figuring out how to tell me. After a few seconds, my mother talked to me, saying that while this was a gift for Alex, it would be cruel to bring me there because it would simply be a family vacation. I pointed out the obvious, that my parents were accompanying her, but they maintained they were only going because Alex wanted it, and they were confident that she would not want me there. Even they were aware that we did not get along very well. After that, I had nothing else to say and returned to my room. I just felt horrible for myself because, while I haven't accomplished much academically, I believe a football scholarship is worth celebrating as well. But my parents didn't appear to care about me or my accomplishments. Furthermore, they agreed to leave me at home for the full week while they were away, allowing Alex to celebrate with her friends in Hawaii. I was miserable for a full day until I remembered that my family will be gone for a week, which meant I would have the house to myself and could do whatever I wanted. That made me feel less sad, and I resolved to make the best of the situation. While they were preparing for the trip, it felt as if everyone had entirely forgotten about me, which was not something I was used to, but it stung. On the day they were leaving, my parents instructed me to take good care of the house. At least they said farewell to me, but my sister didn't even look at me and laughed. None of this was unexpected behavior from her, so you can understand how horrible my relationship with her is. For the first several days, I just invited my pals around. We played computer games, ate junk food, and did anything we wanted from morning till dusk, when they had to go home. This was my plan for every day. On the final day, I planned to phone my pals and inform them that they were also free to come over that day. But at around 8 a.m., I heard the doorbell ring, which was far too early for my pals to arrive. I hadn't gotten up properly either, because I'd been sleeping in late since I graduated from high school. I went downstairs and peeked outside the window to see who it was, and I was surprised to see my mother standing there. It took me a few minutes to remember that my mother was not present. She was in Hawaii with the rest of the family. This must be someone else. Then I observed some discrepancies. The woman standing at the door was much taller than my mother. She also looked younger, with blonde highlights in her hair. My mother despised that, so I concluded that this was not my mother, but rather someone who looked strangely similar to her. After some thought, I decided to unlock the door since if she looked like my mother, she must be a relative. When I opened the door, she introduced herself as my mother's cousin and said that she had been living in the United Kingdom for the past 20 years, so I had probably never seen her before. According to what I knew, my mother had no siblings and was an only child. This woman appeared to be only a few years younger than my mother, so I assumed she was a cousin. But having a cousin who looked so close to my mother was strange. I had never heard my mother talk about a cousin from the United Kingdom. Then again, I don't speak to my mother very often. I allowed her in, but I made it clear that my parents were not home because I was certain she had come to see them rather than me. To my astonishment, she said that was okay because she hadn't come to visit them. She had actually come to visit me and my sister. That was another surprise for me because I couldn't comprehend what Mom intended to do with me and my sister. Anyway, I had to tell her that I was the only person at home while my sister was abroad. When I said that, she looked unhappy and asked where the rest of them were. So I decided to be honest with her because her face suggested that she could be trusted, and I told her the truth. She, like most other people, was surprised to learn that my family had left me at home alone and had gone to Hawaii with my sister to celebrate her high school graduation, despite the fact that I had graduated at the same time. I tried to downplay how bad I felt since I didn't want her to think I was moaning. I didn't want my mother to scold me for telling her cousin about our family when they got back. She apologized and said she understood how I felt, so she offered to give me a gift. Then she brought out her checkbook from her purse and wrote me a check, but asked me to fill out the amount. This was the first time something like this had ever happened, and I was stunned. So I told her that I couldn't allow her to do that since I couldn't accept money from her. We debated that for a few minutes before she just stated that she would fill in the amount she wanted to give me. She wrote me a check for $50,000. I claimed that I couldn't accept that from her since it was an enormous sum, something I couldn't even fathom. But she said she wasn't going to hear it, so I had to accept it. Update: she stated it was the least she could do for me, and I'm still not sure what that means. But in the end, she had me accept the check. Then we talked about my family and how everyone else was doing, but I could sense she was distracted. She was clearly not listening to me. After about half an hour, she informed me she had to leave and hoped to see me again soon. After she left, I recognized it had been a strange meeting, and her behavior had been exceedingly odd. I also couldn't get the impression that she was lying about being my mother's cousin, because cousins don't look like one another. Or perhaps they do sometimes, but I had the impression, and continue to have the impression, that my mother had a sister whom none of us are aware of. This is why she had to lie to me about being my mother's cousin. I know that's strange, and I don't want to sound like a conspiracy theorist, but that woman was just like my mother, and I could feel it. Now, here's where I made a mistake. It was very reckless of me, but I was so distracted by that encounter with the woman that I forgot about the check. I left it on the coffee table under a stack of letters from my parents that had arrived that week. Then my pals came over, and we had a little party with a few other people, so I entirely forgot about the check. The next morning, my family returned from Hawaii, and everyone was in a joyous mood. Except me, of course. My parents began searching through their mail a few minutes after they returned home, and they discovered the check near the bottom of the pile. I consider myself quite fortunate to have been standing right there and able to remove it from my father's hands as soon as he noticed it. But it was too late. He had already noticed it was a check intended to me and began asking a series of questions about it. I don't blame him for that, because if someone writes your son a $50,000 check, you should surely ask questions about it. After they found out about the check, I realized there was no use in hiding anything. So I told them about the woman who had visited, our talk, and how she had written me that check simply because she wanted to. I also informed them that I will deposit the check soon. One very odd thing happened while I was informing everyone about the visitor. I noticed my folks becoming quite frightened. I am not exaggerating when I say that the color actually disappeared from their faces. It was clear since they had returned from Hawaii tanned, and now they seemed pale and sweating. I was about to ask my mother who this cousin from the UK was, because I could tell they were both hiding something from us. But before I could accomplish anything, my bratty sister completely sidetracked the topic. She can't live without making everything about herself, so she obviously chose that very moment to start fussing about how the check was addressed just to me. She stated I should have spoken with that aunt and asked her to make it out to both of us rather than just me. I informed her that this woman was aware of both of us and had specifically addressed the check to me. I then attempted to resume speaking with my dad, but all three of them began discussing the check instead. It was a blatant attempt to change the subject of the conversation, and it worked because my parents began encouraging my sister to argue with me, and she fell for the bait. Alex soon began yelling at me to attract my attention, claiming that this was really unjust and that I would have to split the money with her. That piqued my interest, and I told her there was no way on earth I was going to let it happen. She had already received her gift, a trip to Hawaii with her pals, which was exactly what she had requested. This was my present, so I had no obligation to share it with her, just as she had no obligation to share her trip to Hawaii with me. I felt it was a reasonable response, but my parents started egging her on, saying that since my aunt had gone to see us, she had clearly intended to give us both a gift. They claimed that I must have played the victim card in front of her, and that she wrote me the check out of sympathy because I had cast the rest of my family as the criminals. Alex bought the story. To be honest, I didn't have to play the victim card because I was clearly a victim in this situation. I was the victim of a horrific family, and I'm not sure if the woman wrote the check out of sympathy. But it was addressed to me, therefore I was not going to share it with anyone. Obviously, this resulted in a heated argument, and my parents encouraged my sister to be even more delusional and entitled throughout the talk. Maybe she wasn't as perceptive as I was, but I could see that they were only attempting to divert our attention away from our aunt. And I was really angry because they were all acting so silly. My mother eventually warned me that if I refused to split the money with my sister, I would no longer be able to live with them. And that's when I completely lost it. I started yelling like a crazy person, which I generally try not to do because I don't want to be on the same level with my family. But I couldn't control myself. I assured them I knew my rights and that I was not going anywhere, nor would I share the money with her. To be honest, I'm not sure whether there are any laws to restrict this, but after my outburst, I'm confident they won't be coming after me anytime soon. I also dubbed my parents the biggest liars since I knew they were hiding something from both of us. and I couldn't believe they were attempting to provoke us to fight so we'd forget about the visitor. Then I stormed up to my room to calm myself, flung a lot of stuff around, and eventually managed to bring myself under control. Since then, no one in the family has talked to me. Even during meal times, my mother brings me the food and then leaves without saying anything. I feel like a prisoner in my own home, and I wanted to run away last night. Alex is the only person who has said anything to me thus far. But she was only looking out for herself. She came into my room this morning and told me that all of this could have been prevented if I had simply agreed to split the money with her and quit bothering our parents about our aunt. She informed me that it was clear they didn't want to talk about it, and now I have just myself to blame for the hole I've dug myself. After saying that, she chuckled, and I thought she was the most selfish person I had ever met. But then I started thinking about a variety of things. Maybe I've been acting just like her. $50,000 is a large sum of money, and splitting it with her would have no negative consequences for me. But I just wanted it all for myself. I also believe I may have overanalyzed the incident with my aunt. However, their reaction was too suspicious to ignore. I feel as if I am losing my mind right now. I just have so many conflicting emotions about everything that I have no idea what I'm upset about. So I really have to ask. Do you think there was anything odd in my parents' reaction to learning that my aunt would be visiting? And more importantly, am I an asshole for refusing to share the $50,000 with my sister? Update 1. Hello, everyone. First and foremost, thank you for all of your reactions and comments on my post. Never in my life did I expect that so many individuals would take the time to offer me advice on a circumstance like this. It's also nice to know that there are more folks like me out there, so thank you. I suppose I was a little scattered in my original post, but that was due to the circumstances. Anyway, I'm going to attempt to keep it short and sweet this time. So, first things first, I've decided to leave my parents' residence. I gave it some serious thinking. They want it, and I do too. I never left home because I believed it would be too much, but this time, my parents have gone too far. I have never gotten along with them or my sister. I don't see the sense in staying with them any longer. So, I've opted to live with a friend of mine till college starts. Update. When I described a visitor who had come over during their absence, they went completely white. And now my sister is having a meltdown. My friend's parents graciously consented to let me live with them for free, despite my promise to pay rent. The bottom line is, I'm leaving. And obviously, I'm keeping all of the money. All said and done, the check was made out to me and only me. I am not obligated to share that amount of money with anyone, least of all my sister. If they hadn't left me at home alone while they went on vacation, I probably wouldn't have met my aunt, let alone received so much money. So, in some ways, they bear responsibility for this. She has never treated me with courtesy or respect, so expecting me to split the money with her right now is ridiculous. I am confident that my parents will always look after her. I can't claim the same thing for myself, so I clearly need the money more than she does. I'm not sure why I was thinking about splitting up with her or questioning whether I was doing the right thing. I guess I was overly emotional. But I've thought about it, and I don't have to feel bad about what I'm doing. They never have, and it's perfectly acceptable for me to act like them. It has been 3 days since my last post, and I have been packing everything up. Tomorrow afternoon, my friend's father will arrive with his pickup truck, and I will leave. I really cannot wait. Update. So much has changed in my life since my previous post. It's unbelievable to imagine that it was just 4 days ago. I'm not sure where to begin, but I suppose I should pick up where I left off. I stated that I was going to move out of my parents' house, and I did so the day after that post. My friend's father came to pick me up and helped me relocate all of my belongings. Obviously, I did not need to bring any furniture with me. It was simply a collection of crates. My parents witnessed everything that happened but did not ask any questions. Alex did not bother to leave her room. She just came out once, saw what was going on, and went back inside. After we'd moved the last of the boxes, I was prepared to depart without saying goodbye since I knew no one cared. But, before I could walk out the door, my mother stopped me and inquired where I thought I was going. So I informed her that no one in the family had spoken to me in the last few days, and everyone preferred to pretend that I did not exist. They didn't have to pretend any longer. They could be completely themselves around the house and forget about me in the actual sense because I was moving out. It shouldn't have surprised them because she had previously stated that if I didn't split the money with my sister, I would no longer be able to live in this house. Since I had opted not to share the money with anyone, I figured it was best for me to go on my own rather than get kicked out. My parents warned me that I was being silly and that my arrogance would wear off once I understood that $50,000 would not be enough to get by in the world alone. I just ignored it and walked away, and they didn't try to talk to me again. Interestingly, my friend's father was far more empathetic than my own parents. He assured me that everything would be okay throughout the drive to his residence. They put me up in a guest room, which is where I've been staying. My friend has always been a fantastic stand-up comedian, and his family is the reason why. They're all so kind and sweet, and looking at them makes me understand that this is how families should be. So I'm pleased to be staying with them till I depart for college. But that's not all that transpired in the last few days. I was also able to learn the truth about the visitor we had. I'm still battling to come to terms with it. I believe I said several times that the woman who had visited us looked strikingly similar to my mother. And I had already suspected that she might be a secret sister. I guess I was correct since she contacted me over social media last evening and told me a slew of stuff that I'm still not sure what to think about. Apparently, she is my mother's youngest sister, but she was kicked out of the family since she became pregnant while in college. Guess who her children are? Yes, it's us. Alex and I are her children. However, because mom was only 19 and still in college, her parents compelled her to put us up for adoption. Around the same time, my parents began trying for a baby but were having difficulty conceiving. After one family meeting, my mother chose to adopt her children. However, my parents only wanted one child, and it had to be a female. That's when my biological mother stood firm, stating that both of her children would be raised by the same parents. She wasn't going to separate us, and my grandparents persuaded my parents to adopt both of us. My birth mother paid frequent visits to both of us in the first few months after our adoption. But I believe my mother had had enough and told her parents that she wanted her to cease visiting. My mother argued that having two maternal figures as we grew up would be confusing, and that she should remain away from our family until my mother was comfortable having her over. My grandparents agreed that my mother was correct, so they told my biological mother to stay away until my mother was ready to have a connection with us. That resulted in a major argument, and they didn't talk for several years. Finally, she contacted her parents at the beginning of this year, and I believe my grandparents had a change of heart. So they gave her our address, and she came to visit us both. Alex and I are now 18, therefore she believed it would be the ideal moment to begin a relationship with us. And perhaps, eventually, she will be able to tell us the truth. But after meeting me and seeing how I was treated by my family, she realized she had made a mistake. She regretted allowing my mother to adopt her children, especially since it was clear to her that my mother just wanted to raise her daughter. So she did adopt both of us, but she only accepted Alex, not me. She felt accountable for this, so she contacted me and felt compelled to tell me the truth. Because no one else was going to. It's been several hours since then, and I still can't get over it. I have no idea what to think about it, and I have not told anyone. Not even the friend I'm currently living with. Typing it out here helped me speak it aloud at least once. But I'm still not sure what to do with this information. I haven't responded to her message, but she knows I read it. I suppose it explains a lot of things, but God, I don't know how to feel anymore. I am absolutely numb, puzzled, and lost. In any case, the world has not come to a halt as a result of this revelation. And I'll have to do something about it someday. I'm just not sure what. But I will figure something out. I'm confident that the comments here will be beneficial as well. Update 3. Hey, it's been 2 weeks since I received the mail from my aunt. To be honest, I am not sure what to call her yet. She introduced herself as my aunt. But she has suddenly become my mother. Also, I have to admit that she is a better mother than the one who reared me. Anyway, I took my sweet time responding to her message. And I texted her back only 3 days ago. I informed her that there was a lot to talk and that I would prefer to meet in person. But I was willing to have a relationship with her. I'd already lost the family I thought I had, so it couldn't harm to give her another chance. Everyone made mistakes, and she did so at the age of 19. I can't hold it against her. I haven't told Alex about it yet since I don't believe it is my position to say anything. I believe our mother needs to tell her the truth immediately. Which mother is telling her the truth? I don't know. All I know is that in a few days, I'll be meeting with my biological mother to try to repair our relationship. Because she is back for good, and she is not going anywhere. I'm kind of looking forward to it. I really hope everything goes well. Keeping my fingers crossed. My sister crashed my wedding but was arrested for kidnapping. Now that she is facing jail, my parents want me to help, but I refuse. So, I, 24F, got married about a week ago, and things went very wrong. Let me start from the beginning. I have an older sister named Stacy, 26F. We have always had a strong sibling rivalry, and I am serious about it. Growing up, we despised each other because we were always trying to outdo each other. We never got along, and as we grew older, we continued to despise each other. We were sure not to show others how much we loathed one another, but it was all there beneath the surface. When we were living together, she and I didn't talk to each other and simply put up a show for our family members when they visited. But even our parents realized we didn't like each other, and they never tried to make things right between us. In some ways, I believe that is what led to so many things going wrong in the end. But I will get to that later. She moved out when she was 18 to attend college, and I was relieved because it meant I could finally be myself around the house instead of continuously walking on eggshells because of her. She would only come back for the holidays and talk about how wonderful her life was since she was attending one of the greatest business schools in the state. I was a little jealous of her, but my sole goal was to work harder than her and get into a better place, which I achieved. I was accepted into an Ivy League school. That was a great slap in the face for her, and I was celebrated far more than she ever was. I expected that getting into an Ivy League institution would put a stop to our competition, but that did not happen. She suddenly revealed that she was beginning her own business. She completed the task with the assistance of my father. I'm not sure if it was luck or hard effort, but her firm took off a few years ago, and she relocated to Japan to expand the technological side of it. It was a huge success, and our parents were really proud of her. That was roughly 2 years ago. Since then, she has lived in Japan. Unfortunately, things didn't go so well for me once I finished college. The fact that Stacy was succeeding so much only exacerbated the situation. I had gotten a job, but it was nowhere as glamorous or rewarding as what she was doing. So I quit shortly after joining. That was a terrible mistake, and I know it now because I should have stayed there and worked my way up. But I was a fool for competing with my sister when I should have focused on myself and my work. It was a very stupid decision on my behalf, and I regret it. But it's finished now. After I quit my work, there was a period in which I waited for something to simply fall into my lap. When it didn't happen, I became depressed. It also didn't help that Stacy was excelling in her area, and her business was something my parents always brag about. I despised it, but I couldn't say anything without appearing resentful and jealous. Even though I was feeling both of these emotions, I had to disguise them when I met with my family and seemed to be pleased for Stacy, because anything other than happiness was an inappropriate emotion. That was about the time I met my spouse, Jackson, 25 million. I'm very pleased I did because meeting him transformed my life. It had been roughly 6 months since I had resigned from my work and had been hoping for a better opportunity to come along, but with no success. As I previously stated, I was deeply miserable and disappointed with my life. So I downloaded a dating application. I wasn't really searching for something serious, I just wanted to meet people and use it as a way to distract myself from how horrible things were going for me. I was trying to pay rent and buy basics for myself. I had to rely on my parents for money. They'd send me money every month. I also had some money saved from when I was working, but it wasn't enough, and I was struggling to pay my bills. My parents would bail me out, and I would promise them every month that I would return all of their money as soon as I could. I could always sense displeasure in their tones, which drove me insane because I knew I wasn't doing my best. It was really difficult for me to accept the fact that, at the time, Stacy was faring better than I was, and I was a tremendous disappointment to my parents. So I was utilizing dating apps and going on random dates with men I didn't even like, all to distract myself from my feelings. For a while, it worked. I went on a few dates over the course of many weeks with individuals who were solely interested in hooking up. It was basically casual. However, that changed after I paired with Jackson. He was an extremely interesting guy to talk to at first, and he checked all of my boxes. He had also received straight A's in school. But after graduating from high school, he attended culinary school and was working in a restaurant when we met 2 years ago. He was humorous, engaging, and had the perfect amount of machismo. But at the time, I assured him I wasn't seeking something serious. When he asked me out on a date after nearly 2 weeks of talking online, he said he was seeking something serious and did not want to be in a casual relationship. He was dating to marry. I appreciated how honest and open he was about his feelings, so I decided to give it a shot, not knowing what was in store for me. I went out with him after agreeing on a first date to see how things went. And it went extremely nicely. It felt like we'd known each other for years. I think it was the best date I've ever had. We had a great time, and with him, I didn't feel like I was trying to prove anything. That was the first time I'd ever felt that way around other people, so it was a refreshing change. Our talk flowed easily, and we just clicked. I'm not sure what changed, but I decided to give our relationship a proper shot. We went on several more dates. But after only 3 months together, I discovered that I was pregnant. At the time, all I was concerned about was how Jackson would react to it. Within the first few weeks of our relationship, he had learned almost everything he needed to know about me. I had told him everything about myself and my family, including how I had spent my entire childhood competing with and trying to outdo my sister. But being with him inspired me to be a better person, a person of my own. He already knew everything about me, and I believe I knew everything about him at that moment. In reality, he was the one who pushed me to get out of my depressive state and actively seek a job rather than waiting for something to come to me. So I ended up returning to my previous position at the company from which I had resigned. And I believe that was one of the best moves I've ever made. By the time I discovered I was pregnant, I had been working for over a month and things with Jackson were going well. I was just concerned about his reaction to the news. Most people would believe it was too soon and withdraw from the relationship because they were terrified. But deep inside, I genuinely wanted the baby. It simply felt perfect. I can't put it into words, but I just felt prepared to be a mother. To my surprise, when I told Jackson about my pregnancy, he was very supportive. He informed me that it was my body, therefore I could do anything I wanted, and that he would support me regardless of what I did. When I told him I wanted to keep the kid, no one was happier than him. He explained that he had wanted me to keep the baby because he believed he was also ready. Even though we were young and had only been together for 3 months, he told me he didn't want to seem insane or come across as overly powerful, so he left it up to me. But my decision had made him the happiest guy alive. We agreed that despite the fact that we were expecting a kid, we would wait to get to know each other better before marrying. It was decided. We pushed ahead with the pregnancy, and a few weeks later, we discovered that we were having twins. That was another huge surprise, but we dealt with it. He moved in with me soon after we learned about the pregnancy and introduced me to his parents around the same time. His parents were quite lovely, and they appeared to love all of their children equally, without ever pressuring them to compete with one another. It appeared to be a healthy family, and it was the first time I had seen how one worked because I had never experienced it firsthand. However, I was hesitant to introduce him to my family because I knew my parents wouldn't approve of my life choices. I was a talented student with a promising future, but I had opted to have children with a man I had only known for less than a year. I'd even moved in with him. Any parent would disapprove of this, and I knew my parents would probably lose their minds. So I kept putting it off until I started to show, at which point I realized there was no way to hide it. I organized a meeting with them when I was 4 months pregnant and decided to tell them everything. I invited them over to my house and had Jackson present for moral support. They knew I had been dating Jackson for a time, but they had no idea I had been living with him, or that I would soon be the mother of his children. When I informed them about it, I anticipated them to get angry and yell at me, but they responded in an unexpected way. They truly appeared to be delighted for me. They were overjoyed and hugged me, congratulating me on my pregnancy. And when I informed them I was having twins, my mother nearly collapsed with joy. It was an unexpected reaction, but I was relieved that they were not upset with me. In fact, once they found out, they threw me a party and proclaimed to everyone that they were about to become grandparents. I also informed them that Jackson and I did not want to marry solely because we were having children together. We wanted to live together for a while before making such a significant commitment. They were cool with it as well. They were incredibly supportive of everything, which surprised me, but in a positive way. I was really relieved that my parents were on my side in this, since I would have despised it if they had turned against me or attempted to change my mind about things. I even spoke with them about how supportive they were, and I stated that I had not expected that from them. They told me that they were aware that they had never truly been excellent parents since they had never stopped my sister and me from competing with one another throughout our childhood. They felt they were doing something nice. They believed that continually pushing us to achieve better would help us succeed. However, they understood that doing so may have harmed us in the long run. This epiphany occurred when they discovered that I had quit my work in order to pursue a better opportunity. They recognized that Stacy's success with her own business had influenced her decision. They realized that I wanted to accomplish something on my own to outdo Stacy. I thought it was strange that they knew about it, even though I had never mentioned it to them. However, they stated that as parents, they were aware of what was going on and felt responsible for it. They wanted me to know that whatever happened, they would be there for me. I didn't have to continually compete with Stacy to prove that I deserved their love and affection. They would always adore me, and they were equally proud of both of us because we had always given our all. That was the most important thing to them. It was a much-needed chat, and I'm glad I talked it out with my folks. It made things much simpler for me during the pregnancy and afterwards because I could openly ask my parents to help me with the kids while Jackson and I worked. They also informed me that they had a similar interaction with Stacy. However, it appears that things did not proceed as planned. She had just smiled and said she didn't need them to say such things because she truly thought I was a sore loser. In her opinion, I was having a breakdown, which is why my parents tried to be understanding by telling us that they were equally proud of both of us. But she understood the truth, and refused to believe that our parents were truly attempting to turn a new leaf and become better parents. She was persuaded that she was more deserving of their love since, by her own standards, she was performing better in life. My parents assured me that they would speak with her again when she returned for the holidays, because internet discussions were not the same. They promised me that they would have the same chat with her as they had with me, and she would finally stop trying to compete with me. Until that time, she had gone to great lengths to make me feel horrible. Since I revealed my pregnancy, she has been sending me backhanded compliments and making sarcastic remarks in the family group chat, completely inappropriate. She was clearly attempting to tear me down and make me feel awful about the pregnancy, even though I saw no reason to feel bad about it. To her, however, it was clearly a failure, a massive one. In her eyes, I was knocked up before marriage and living with a guy I had hardly met. So, for her, this was a big win. She assumed she could now say whatever she wanted to me without repercussions. It was really grating on my nerves, and I had considered leaving the group chat multiple times. But my parents persuaded me to stay since they were genuinely trying to be better parents and wanted us to stick together. So I stayed, for their sake. My parents pledged to put an end to this, or at least do their best. And if they couldn't, I could leave the group. When Stacy returned for Christmas, my parents informed me they were going to talk to her, and they did. Unfortunately, she was already too far gone by then. Her main purpose in life at the time was to humiliate me and make me feel as tiny as possible. She was intolerable that year. Even though she had been extremely unpleasant in the previous few years due to her thriving business, that year was far worse. Not only had she just returned from Japan, but she was also aware that I was pregnant and nowhere near her level of accomplishment and riches. She used every chance to remind everyone of this. She was constantly talking about herself, giving me stares, and even sarcastically asking if I was not happy for her. It was quite awkward and uncomfortable. I had to leave the party early because I was trying so hard not to lose my anger and cry in front of everyone. After the Christmas party, my parents attempted to contact Stacy again in the hopes that she would stop calling. Instead, she stated that she had worked hard to be where she is, and she would not allow me to take that away from her. She stated she had every right to brag about it as she pleased, and I would just have to deal with it. That was when I decided to cut ties with her. I exited the group chat, and my parents agreed that it was for the best. We hadn't communicated for 2 years, and I had no idea what she had been up to. But I recently learned from a couple of my relatives that she had returned from Japan, with a baby. I first heard about it around 4 weeks ago. Apparently, it was a miracle baby, who was just 2 months old. My parents told me that they had had multiple video chats with her before she returned, and they had never detected anything, not even the faintest indication that she was pregnant. She explained that she wanted it to be a surprise for everyone. She stated she had recently become a mother and had married in a secret ceremony only a year before. Now she was ready to discuss it. The timing was nothing short of suspect. Almost everyone in the family thought I was going to marry around the same time. But now, thanks to her, everyone is only talking about her marriage and daughter. She stated that her husband remained in Japan due to a heavy workload and was unable to make it. But she had returned with her daughter because she wanted her family to meet her. I couldn't let something like that bother me since I was getting married and it was meant to be a lovely time. So, even after she returned, I continued to avoid her. Unfortunately, it didn't matter because she managed to spoil my wedding. She showed up on my wedding day unannounced. Just after the ceremony, I noticed her among the guests. I nearly flipped out. But Jackson and my folks helped me relax. Apparently, she had snuck in, and making a disturbance would only play into her hands and make my wedding all about her. As long as she wasn't actively causing problems, we decided to let her stay and deal with it later. I was being married at Jackson's aunt's farmhouse, so security wasn't tight, which is how she got inside. Now I regret not spending enough money on security. If I had, we could have avoided a lot of problems. Throughout her time at the wedding, all she talked about was how fortunate she was to have her miracle baby, and how my children were illegitimate and did not count because I had them before marriage. It was quite insulting. She was saying that to everyone she met while attending my wedding. Later on, numerous visitors approached me and told me about it. I had to grin and let it go since I didn't want to argue with her and ruin my own wedding. It was quite challenging, but I managed to get through it. At one point, I nearly lost it. But, before I could say anything, the police attacked the venue. I had no idea what was happening. They sealed the entrances, and we were locked in within seconds. Then they arrested Stacy. It was really disorienting. A woman was screaming and crying while holding the baby that was meant to be my sister's, saying it was actually hers. After then, everything became a blur: statements, handcuffs, and uncertainty. It was not until much later that we realized what had transpired. The baby had never been Stacy's. Apparently, all of the photos she had shown us were taken from a friend's social media account. She'd photoshopped herself into them, like some sicko. And the worst part? All of the occasions she had met us with the kid, she had been babysitting for her friend. She had been living with a friend since she returned from Japan because she had terminated the lease on her own apartment and was seeking for a new place. So she was babysitting for free. That was why Mom had never invited our parents or relatives to see her. Then, on the day of my wedding, she decided to go too far. She attended my wedding without her friend's permission. She had gotten the baby out while her friend and her friend's husband were sleeping. She then refused to answer any subsequent calls. That's why her friends had to contact the cops and have her detained. Fortunately, she had been constantly discussing my wedding and how she wanted to take me down, so her pals had guessed where she would be. This is how they found her and arrested her. It was really ridiculous. I still can't believe what happened, but it did. My family and I are still fighting to cope with it. Thinking Stacy was a fierce competitor was one thing, but knowing that she was willing to go to such extreme, crazy lengths only to show our parents that she was better than me, that was extremely concerning. She is now pleading with her friends not to bring charges against her because she is well aware that she would not win this case. If charges are filed, she will face jail time. So far, nothing has happened, yet she blames me for everything. She thinks I was simply getting married to rub it in her face. Now, don't forget that I haven't spoken to her in almost 2 years. I haven't spoken to her since our previous conversation. And I was even polite enough to let her crash my wedding because I didn't want to cause a scene or shame her. She was the one who transformed my wedding into something nasty. If anything, I should be blaming her. So, when she contacted me yesterday and told me that I needed to convince her friends that I had pushed her to do something crazy, I told her precisely what I believed. I told her that I wished she would wind up in prison, because that is where she belongs. Either that or the psych facility, as she is mad. My parents, however, believe that I must assist her at this time. They want me to persuade her friends that she wasn't thinking straight, because I was tormenting her with news of my marriage and children. That way, they may not file charges against her and have her detained. So far, the matter has become slightly more problematic because she had been living with them and babysitting the infant. The police have yet to figure out what to do about it. They cannot proceed without her friend's permission. It would have been a clear case of kidnapping if she hadn't been living with them and actively caring for their infant while they were away. But that is not the situation here. That is why she has managed to stay out of jail, for the time being. She continued insisting that they had already agreed to her take the kid with her anytime she wanted. But there's no way to corroborate it yet, so she's not in big trouble. All we need to do is persuade them not to file charges. But I am not sure I want to do it. I don't believe she deserves any assistance from me, of all people. But my parents believe it would be bad of me to turn my back on her. So, am I a bad person for wanting my sister to go to jail? Update 1. Okay, I've chosen to cut connections with my entire family, including my parents. Yes, they were quite useful during my pregnancy and after the baby, but I'm done with them now. I believe I will require some time alone. Whether they are supportive or not is irrelevant to me right now. I simply want to be with my husband and children. Period. And I can't do it if I continue to get caught up in their drama. So I'm withdrawing myself from the issue since it's causing me mental distress. I am grateful to my parents for everything they did once I revealed my pregnancy. But really? I am so tired of everything. As for Stacy, I think it's clear why I don't want to aid her. She does not deserve my help. She dug her own grave so she could get out on her own. Jackson thinks I'm making the proper decision. Yes, that's it. Update 2. So, I recently heard from a couple of my family that Stacy is in serious difficulty. Her pals have officially chosen to seek charges and take this thing further. So far, Stacy has claimed that she has her friend's permission to take the kid whenever she wants. But that will be extremely tough to show in court. Given her behavior during the wedding and how she had been claiming the child as her own, I can't see how she can get out of this. It's upsetting, but really? I cannot say I am surprised. I'm also not speaking with my folks right now. And I don't think I will until they admit that what I did was correct, and that they apologize for asking me to help her. That's a lot to ask, but I don't want to speak with them until they understand how terribly they messed things up for Stacy and me as children. They must acknowledge that this is partly their fault. Update 3. Hi, so, Stacy is now on trial. We don't know what will happen to her yet, but if she is convicted, she may face up to 5 years in jail. She is mentally unstable, which could result in a lower sentence. Anyway, that isn't our business. Jackson and I are still going on our honeymoon. We're going to try to make amends for our horrible wedding. I can't ask my parents to babysit because we still don't communicate. So we'll have to ask Jackson's parents to watch our kids while we're gone. But it'll just be for 2 weeks, so it's not too long. I'm simply hoping my honeymoon is better than my wedding. And honestly, I have a feeling it will happen. Because this time, it will be just me and Jackson. My mother wanted me to cancel my wedding to avoid hurting my sister, who was abandoned before hers. I refused and didn't invite them. I'm a 30-year-old woman, correct? And I've been quite excited because I'm arranging my wedding with my boyfriend, who is now my fiancé. We've been preparing this big day for almost a year, and we wanted to make sure we had everything booked well ahead of time. Why? Because we chose a specific date in December for our wedding, and it falls right in the heart of the Christmas season, when everything gets really hectic. Here's where things become tough. My mother isn't exactly delighted with my wedding preparations. Why? My sister was set to marry a few months ago, but her fiancé abandoned her right before the altar, which is kind of terrible. Yes, there was a massive mess, and she was really upset. My mother believes that holding a wedding so soon after the accident will be extremely difficult for my sister and may hurt her sentiments. First and foremost, my wedding isn't particularly fancy or extravagant. My fiancé and I prefer to keep things simple. We don't overspend on things we don't need. Our wedding is not too expensive. We're only inviting roughly 50 guests, including our closest friends and family. We are not throwing a big pre-wedding celebration or a wild bachelorette bash. It is simply just the wedding ceremony followed by a pleasant, modest meal. Another factor is that my fiancé and I planned our wedding long before my sister considered getting married again. We didn't make this decision on a whim. Everyone in the family, even my mother and sister, knew what we were going for in December. So we're not being insensitive or anything. But, for some reason, just as things appeared to be going smoothly, my mother and sister decided to make a huge issue about it. It's very frustrating because it appears that they're turning this pleasant occasion into a drama. My sister is 3 years older than I, and this would have been her second marriage. Her first relationship ended very calmly. They simply drifted apart after 2 years and chose to split. She has been single since then. So, last Christmas, just when everything was bright and merry, my fiancé proposed to me, and it was beautiful. We had planned a summer wedding, but my fiancé was assigned a short-term trip overseas, so we had to postpone our preparations until December. Since then, we've been planning it in stages. I hate to admit it, but I believe my sister hastened into a second marriage because of me. When we announced our wedding last year, she had only recently begun dating him. They hadn't planned a wedding yet, but I found out a few weeks later that they were getting married. It sounded odd to me, marrying someone after only a few months of knowing them. Out of concern, I asked her whether she was sure about this guy, because marriage is a major deal for me. She became defensive, claiming that not everyone is capable of developing a lasting relationship. It was a really snarky comment, but I let it go. She's never had a steady relationship. I believe the longest relationship she had lasted a year, with the man she married first and then divorced after 2 years. I'm not saying that a year isn't enough time to get to know your partner, but after a broken marriage, one should proceed with caution. She had only known this guy for about 5 or 6 months, but she was ready for another wedding. Anyway, that was her decision, and I respected it and did not intervene further. They had planned an intimate church wedding with only a few guests. I believe it was less than 20. There were just 3 persons from the groom's side on the guest list. He said that his parents resided in a foreign nation and would be unable to attend on such short notice. So, from his perspective, there were 2 buddies and 1 colleague. I believe it was his manager. Nevertheless, I am not certain. However, none of them, including the groom, attended the wedding. We remained waiting at the church. My sister and dad repeatedly called him, but he did not show up. Later, he texted her and said he couldn't marry her since he wasn't sure yet. My sister tried to calm him down and advised that they continue their relationship and then decide on marriage. But he ignored her. That dude was in his early 20s, less than 25. Again, I'm not generalizing, but you know how the early 20s are, especially for Generation Z. I don't think anyone wants to settle down at this age, especially after only a few months of dating. Since then, my sister has been bitter toward me. No, I did not do any of those "I told you so" things, but I believe she blames me for jeopardizing her plans. Being stood up at your wedding is the worst thing that can happen to anyone, and I consoled her afterwards. She requested to be left alone with her friends and mother. Except for her friends and her mother, I was the only other person in the room. It was amusing though, she might have just asked me to leave. I felt terrible about it, but I left without saying anything. I wasn't feeling well, but I recognized it must be humiliating for her, and she had no idea how to respond. I contacted her after a week to check on her, but she did not answer. I texted, but it was left unread, so I didn't bother again. A few months later, I met her at Mom's house. I asked her how she was doing, and she said, "Why are you treating me as if I'm destitute and abandoned by a man? I don't need a man. I'm happy and complete just being myself." I said, "Sure, I was just checking on you. You see, I'm not making up these assumptions." She wasn't giving me cold shoulders after her wedding was put off. Last week, we sent out wedding invites. My sister called me. I assumed it was to congratulate me, or something. But she was like, "So, you're getting married in this outdoor venue?" I answered, "Yes." She said, "Cool," and then hung up. I was baffled until I received a call from my mother the following evening. She urged me to tone down the wedding since it was upsetting my sister. Toning down means canceling the venue and marrying at a church or at the registrar's office with 36 individuals on both sides. I informed her that we had been planning this for over a year and that she was well aware of the plan. So why would she suddenly have an issue with it? She said that it was because my sister had been standing up at the altar, and it would be inappropriate for me to have such a grandiose wedding within a few months. I told her that we had already paid for the majority of the wedding expenses, including the venue, food, and decorations. Not only had we paid the minimum booking amount, but nearly 60% of it. I tried to make her understand that modifying the plan would result in a tremendous loss. Canceling the venue would result in a significant financial loss for us. All booking fees for the venue, decorations, and caterers are non-refundable. Hearing me moan about the loss, she urged that I cancel the wedding. I was at a loss for words. How could she ask me to cancel the wedding? She stated, "Actually, that is the better way to respect your sister's feelings. She would have enough time to recover from her ordeal." She suggested we move our wedding to next summer. I informed her that we had already postponed it for work reasons and could not do it again. She tried to gaslight me by claiming that if I could do it for my fiancé, I should do it again for my sister if I loved her. This made my blood boil. I assured her that I was not going to cancel anything and that the wedding would proceed as scheduled. She hung up on me. I discussed this with my fiancé, and he believes my sister is overly distraught by her position. It must be difficult for her to believe that everything is okay for me while her life is a shambles. He stated it was fine if I wanted a low-key wedding. Discussing this with my fiancé has made things worse for me because I now believe he is more sympathetic to my sister. It makes me feel like a jerk for not considering her feelings. Until recently, I had thought my mother's request to cancel or modify the wedding preparations was absurd. But now I'm questioning if I should do it. I do not know, guys. Have any of you been in a similar situation? I'd love to have a new take on this. Update 1. Hello everyone, and thank you for participating with me in the comments. It was quite helpful to me. One of the comments, probably many of you, suggested that my mother is narcissistic for asking me to adjust my wedding plans simply because it will harm my sister. I understand you are correct. It was quite cruel. I'm not doing anything to injure my sister. If she truly loved me, she would not feel this way. There's no other way to phrase it. She's wounded because she's jealous of me. That is it. And it is not my problem at all. Some of you inquired about my family dynamics, namely whether my mother has always been as apathetic to me and my sister has always been narcissistic. So, the answer is no. Growing up, I never felt that my mother was biased toward my sister. Obviously, every parent has a favorite child unconsciously, but she never made it clear. Yeah, I used to grumble that mom liked my sister more, but she was never harsh or evil toward me. My sister and I had a fairly regular sibling bond in our early days. However, during our adolescence, we grew apart. It wasn't due to fighting or anything like that, we simply matured into completely different people. She was more homely and spent time with mom and our aunts, making small chat. I was never interested in any of that. Instead of spending time with family members, I concentrated on my schoolwork, applying for scholarships, and socializing with friends. I also moved out really early. When I was 18, I enrolled at a college far from home, and I've been living alone ever since. Meanwhile, my sister lived with my parents until she turned 25. She only moved out once she married her first spouse. Even yet, her husband's house was only a few miles away, so she spent every other weekend at mom's place. Dad died 5 years ago, and since then, my sister has moved back in with mom. So, yes, they have spent a lot more time together than I have. Naturally, their link is stronger than the one I have with my mother. Nothing much has happened since my last post. Actually, I'm avoiding any talks with them. I'm not going to visit or call them. My fiancé inquired whether I was contemplating my mother's plea to postpone the wedding. I said no. The wedding would go as planned. I'll provide an update if anything changes. Update 2. I hate to admit it, but my sister is a true narcissist, and mom has been supporting her evilness. So, my mother invited my fiancé and myself out to supper. I didn't feel very well about it. Before that invitation, she contacted me to inquire about the wedding preparations. When I gave her updates, I got the impression she wasn't even interested. It was more like, "Are you still doing that?" Then she interrupted me and asked, "Why don't you come home? We can sit and discuss." I was perplexed by the entire sit and talk thing, but she explained that she only meant a general catch-up. I refused to go since I didn't like how she treated me. But last week, she called my fiancé to formally ask us to supper. He asked if she had a special event or anything she wanted to discuss. But she replied there was nothing special, she just wanted to serve us some home-cooked meals. He couldn't refuse, so we had to comply. Before traveling there, I informed my fiancé that if mom or my sister requested that we cancel the wedding, or even make any changes, he should refuse. My fiancé is a soft-spoken gentleman who is easily taken away by the emotions of others. I advised him not to give in to their demands or make any promises. If such a circumstance came, he should remain silent and I would handle it. We went there and, thankfully, my sister wasn't present. Everything was going well until mom began discussing her wedding, how she and dad married at a registrar's office, followed by a simple lunch with both of their parents. She went on to explain how the money helped them set up their home and take care of other crucial matters. Then mom tried to manipulate my fiancé by suggesting that we have a long life ahead of us and shouldn't spend money on the wedding. I informed mom that we had previously planned a very low-cost wedding relative to our means. We both make decent money, but we live a very basic lifestyle. She went on to remark that it is our family tradition to have an intimate wedding because we are humble people who do not believe in bragging. I was like, wait a minute. My sister's first wedding was more than intimate. It had almost 100 attendees. Mom defended it, claiming it was the family's first wedding and dad wanted it that way. That day, I discovered how wicked my mother was. She began sobbing, expressing her gratitude that dad was able to organize and see at least one of his daughter's weddings. She went on about how much she misses him at all family gatherings. My fiancé hugged mom to comfort her. I motioned for him not to be taken away by her weeping. He was a little annoyed by my stiffness. My mother almost convinced him, and he said, "Sure, yeah, we'll take care of it. You don't care about things like that." My sister stepped in just then, and oh my God, her bitterness knows no bounds. She rushed to console mom, telling her that she would always be there for her and that, unlike others, she would respect and follow her decisions. Her snark pushed my buttons so hard that I couldn't hold back. I informed her that I had done nothing wrong, but they were targeting me in such a way. This resulted in a full-blown quarrel between us. She stated I should have canceled my wedding because my sister was going through such a difficult time in life. She accused me of being insensitive because I did not even tone down the pomp and show. She was personally criticizing me, but I said nothing negative. I was simply defending myself. But when she remarked it was ridiculous to spend so much money on one event, I returned it to her. I answered, "Yes, it is just one event. However, it is the most important day of my life. And, unlike others, I intend to have it once in my life." She quickly realized I was referring to her 2 weddings. I understand, it was cruel and mean. But, Guy, I was over her personal insults. For months, they've been calling me selfish and pretentious. I'm done being the good and bigger guy. I'm just finished. Now, I enjoy being the devil. If they actually cared about my happiness, they would not be upset to see me marry. They're just jealous of me. Not to mention that my statement made the situation worse, and my fiancé had to intercede and drag me out of the house. While departing, I exclaimed that the wedding would go forward as scheduled, and if there was a problem, they could skip it. That happened yesterday, and I'm still seething as I write this update. I'll tell you, you can deal with all the injustices in the world, but narcissism from your own family is the most difficult to deal with. Update 3. Thank you, everyone, for your support. I apologize for the rambling in my last update. I was filled with rage and didn't know how to express it. But thank you to everyone who messaged me and commented. That actually calmed me down. Okay, I've got quite an update this time. I am getting married next week, and we are proceeding with our original intentions. That is the good part. A lot has transpired since my last post, but thankfully, I have not lost my resolve. After that severe, I'd call it, fight with my sister and, to a lesser extent, with my mother, I was experiencing a range of emotions, from rage to heartbreak. I didn't communicate with my fiancé for a few days since I wasn't in a state to have a sensible conversation. He intended to make me see something, but all I could think about was how my sister couldn't take seeing me happy, and mom was side with her, completely ignoring my sentiments. My fiancé talked me through it after my fury faded. He proposed that we change the setting to a church and cut down on our family. He believed that my sister was most concerned about the extended family attending the wedding and discussing her shame at the altar. I was compelled to reduce the number of relatives because I was not particularly close to my aunts and uncles. But I truly wanted the venue. Meanwhile, I contacted my cousin, who, to be honest, is more of a gossip monger. I called her to see if my sister had spoken anything about the fight. And indeed, she did. My sister had spread rumors about me everywhere. She claimed that I humiliated and insulted her for her broken relationships. She absolutely exaggerated the entire story. Even if it was only my sister, I could understand. But my mother had also joined her side and had been disparaging me, calling me insensitive and arrogant. When I told my fiancé about this, he instantly got out of it. He was like, "Whatever you decide, I'm not getting into your family drama." So we're sticking with the original plan. A garden-themed wedding with 70 guests, as decided. My sister's narcissism is reaching new heights. She was sobbing in front of my aunts, telling them how insensitive I am and how I am hurting her sentiments by marrying in front of her. Now I don't understand her problem. I'm not marrying her fiancé or husband, why is she making such a fuss over it? I tried to console her. I urged her to feel happy for me. When this technique failed, she began encouraging everyone to boycott my wedding so that I may learn the importance of respecting the feelings of those close to me. When I found out about it, I emailed both of them and told them they were no longer invited to the wedding. I explained how they had been disparaging me and hurting my sentiments. I kept several important family members in the loop, including my godmother, aunt, and her husband, so that everyone knew my side of the tale. Following that email, I noticed the tables turning. I received multiple phone calls from various family members, including my godmother, assuring me that nothing was wrong. I have the right to have the wedding I want. Reservations were made months before, and everyone was aware of the arrangements well in advance. So what my mother and sister were doing was purely terrible. I have every right to exclude them from my wedding. My sister left me a lengthy voicemail, calling me a spoiled brat and arrogant for not respecting her feelings. She stated it was quite tough for her to move on. She had been abandoned by her fiancé during her wedding only a few months prior. Instead of comforting her, I was busy planning my own wedding and clawing her wounds. Then she cursed me. She predicted that I would face a similar fate, or worse. She claimed that my fiancé, or future husband, would leave me or cheat on me with other women. Only then, she explained, would I understand her anguish. All along, I had been supporting myself. I was firm about my decision. But hearing that crushed my heart. I couldn't believe my own sister could curse me like way, only a week before my wedding. The week leading up to the wedding is already an emotional roller coaster for any woman. And hearing this from my own older sister is the worst thing. People bless their siblings and children at weddings. But I am being cursed. I'm not sure what I did to earn this hate. My mother also replied to my email. She claimed she was disowning me. She advised me not to see her again since I didn't care about my family's feelings. This is how things stand so far. If anything more happens, I will provide an update on this topic. Otherwise, send me well wishes for the future. Update 4. Hello again, everyone. I'm here with another update on my wedding story. And what a whirlwind these past few weeks have been. I genuinely appreciate all of your help and guidance. It's been a huge support during these tough times. Following my last update, things took an unexpected turn. With the wedding just days away, my fiancé and I were determined to go ahead with our plans despite the constant family upheaval. Life, as they say, is what happens while you're busy making other plans. 2 days ago, my mother called me. I was afraid to respond, fearing additional requests or comments. But something in her speech took me off guard. It was remorse, which I had not heard from her in a long time. She asked if we might meet for coffee, just the two of us. Against my better judgment I consented, curious to hear what she had to say. We met in a quiet cafe, distant from the recollections of home. My mother, with tears in her eyes, handed me a letter. It came from my sister. In the letter, my sister admitted to being overcome by her own grief. She stated that her actions toward me were unjustified and motivated by her anguish. She apologized for the upheaval she caused and emphasized her desire for my happiness, even if she was still unable to attend the wedding. Then my mother spoke. She apologized for her involvement in everything. She revealed that her grief, over my sister's aborted wedding and the death of my father years before, had impaired her judgment. She told me she loved me and regretted asking me to cancel my wedding. While she couldn't change the past, she wanted to make amends and begged to be a part of my big day. I was stunned. The earnestness in their statements was evident, and it gave me something to think about. I spent the night discussing everything with my fiancé, who was supportive of any decision I made. After careful consideration, I decided to extend an olive branch. I called my sister and mother and told them they may attend the wedding if they felt like it. My sister, still overcome with grief, stated she wasn't prepared to attend. However, she thanked me and wished me a wonderful day. My mother, on the other hand, was grateful and vowed to respect our plans and support us on our special day. Everything is set for the wedding. We're sticking to our original plan, a garden-themed wedding for our closest friends and family. It feels good to move forward. Not only will we celebrate our love, but we will also take steps to mend our family. Thank you again for your words of support and wisdom. I'll make sure to keep you updated after the wedding, wishing us luck and bright skies. Update 5. Hello everyone, I'm back with what I think will be the most joyous update in this entire tale. Our wedding day has come and gone, and it was a celebration that not only represented the start of a new chapter with my husband, but also the mending of old scars in my family. Thank you all for your nice thoughts and useful advice along the process. Our wedding day began bright and clear, a wonderful December morning, with a sharp cold in the air, promising a lovely winter wedding. The garden site was converted into a magnificent setting with white and gold decorations, shimmering fairy lights draped around the trees, and brilliant winter flowers that provided a pop of color against the tranquil white backdrop. The wedding was small and intimate, attended by roughly 70 of our closest friends and family. As I walked down the aisle, my fiancé's face was filled with genuine love and excitement, which I will cherish for the rest of my life. Our vows were genuine and emotional, reflecting our journey together and the future we envisage. Throughout the exchange, there was hardly a dry eye. Even my usually reserved fiancé shed a few tears. Suddenly, midway through the reception, my mother took the microphone. My heart skipped a beat, expecting the reappearance of old frustrations. However, what followed was a genuine speech from her, in which she acknowledged previous mistakes and expressed her joy for us. She shared anecdotes from my childhood, which elicited gentle laughter from the audience. She ended by expressing how proud my father would have been to see this day. It was a significant healing experience for all of us. Later in the evening, the dance floor was open, and the atmosphere was charged with excitement. I danced with my mother, which I had not thought was possible a few months ago. We didn't say much, and we didn't need to. The dance conveyed it all. My friends and family mingled, danced, and celebrated, forming new happy memories. Although my sister was not present, her presence was felt through the beautiful bouquet she sent, along with a heartfelt message. I kept the flower near the family photos we exhibited to symbolize her role in the day. It was a heartbreaking reminder that healing takes time, and everyone's journey is unique. The reception offered a cozy, tasty winter-themed meal with comfort dishes that warmed everyone despite the cold weather. Our caterer did an excellent job presenting seasonal dishes, and the warm apple cider was a big success with the guests. As the evening came to a close, we launched lanterns into the sky, symbolizing the release of old grievances and the illumination of new aspirations and dreams. Watching them sail up into the starry sky, accompanied by cheers from our loved ones, was a magical way to close a wonderful day. Now, as we get back into our routine and think about our wedding, I'm filled with gratitude. This occasion was more than just the wedding of two people. It was about the reconciliation and healing of a family ripped apart by misunderstanding and pain. Moving forward, I wish to mend relationships and create a future filled with love and understanding. Thank you everyone again for your support and for keeping up with my posts. Your ideas and support have been a guiding light throughout difficult times, and I'm grateful for our group. As we travel on our honeymoon and future experiences, I carry not just my husband's affection, but also fresh relationships with my family. Here's to new beginnings, full of hope and excitement. Looked down on by my parents, I left to pursue art. When I shared my first project, my mom coldly asked, "When will you get a real job?" I, 25F, have always been the black sheep in my family. Emma, 28F, my older sister, has been the golden child since I can remember. Our parents, particularly our mother, have always favored her over me. It's been this way since we were children, and it's just gotten worse as we've grown up. Growing up, Emma was always the excellent student, the popular girl, and the one who excelled at everything she did. She captained the cheerleading squad, received all A's, and was even voted prom queen. Meanwhile, I struggled in school, had a narrow circle of friends, and preferred to spend time in the art room rather than attending social activities. Our parents never missed an opportunity to compare us. "Why can't you be more like Emma?" was a remark I heard far too frequently. They'd constantly praise her successes while scarcely mentioning mine. When I get a B on an exam, they'd wonder why it wasn't an A. When Emma received an A, they would throw a celebratory supper. This tendency persisted into our adult life. Emma attended an Ivy League college on scholarship, whereas I attended a state school to study art. Our parents were happy with Emma's choice but wary of mine. They continuously questioned my decision, asking if I was confident I could earn a life as an artist. I remember the day I told them about my college decision. We were sitting at the dinner table, and I had spent weeks working up the guts to announce my choice. When I eventually told them, my father's face plummeted and my mother looked like she was going to cry. Emma, of course, chipped in. "Are you sure that's a good idea? Art school isn't exactly known for job security." My parents agreed, and I felt my hopes crumble in front of my eyes. Despite their displeasure, I persisted with my decision. Those 4 years of college were among the best of my life. I finally felt like I belonged, surrounded by people who understood and valued creativity. I excelled in my academics, making the dean's list multiple times. However, when I shared these accomplishments with my family, they were met with lukewarm reception. "That's nice, dear," my mother would remark, immediately shifting the conversation to Emma's latest accomplishment. Emma secured a high-paying position at a famous law firm in the city following graduation. In contrast, I had difficulty finding my foothold. I worked several part-time jobs while attempting to establish myself as a freelance illustrator. Our parents were always interested in hearing about Emma's newest case or advancement, but when I mentioned my creative efforts, they shifted the subject. I recall a very unpleasant family meal around 6 months after graduation. Emma was visiting from the city, and our parents had cooked her favorite dish. The entire talk concentrated upon her recent court victory. My mother continued emphasizing how proud she was, and my father could not stop smiling. When I tried to tell my mom about a tiny drawing I had gotten for a local magazine, she interrupted me mid-sentence to ask Emma about her intentions to buy an apartment. The situation at home had become terrible. I was still living with our parents to save money, but the continual comparisons and subtle criticism were having a negative impact on my mental health. Emma had her own apartment in the city, paid for by our parents. Every time she came, it felt like a royal arrival. Our parents would spend days getting ready, cleaning the house, and cooking her favorite foods. When she walked in, everyone greeted her with embraces and joyful talk. In contrast, my presence was frequently treated as an afterthought. I attempted to tell them how I felt multiple times, but it never went well. They'd accuse me of jealousy over Emma's achievement or say I was overly sensitive. "We just want what's best for you," they'd say, which always sounded like, "We want you to be more like Emma." My entire life was impacted by the continuous comparisons. I began to question my decisions, abilities, and even my worth as a person. I couldn't get out of bed some days because I was overcome with emotions of inadequacy and failure. I began to retreat from my friends, feeling humiliated by my lack of achievement in comparison to my sister. Their criticism extended to my romantic relationships as well. My parents were unimpressed when I brought home my first serious boyfriend in college, who was also an art student. They spent the entire dinner questioning him about his future prospects and making thinly veiled remarks about the volatility of artistic careers. Meanwhile, when Emma returned home with her boyfriend, a law student from an affluent family, my parents almost pulled out the red carpet. Things came to a head last week. I had finally secured a large illustration commission for a children's book series. It wasn't a large salary, but it was a step in the right direction for me professionally. I was looking forward to sharing the news with my family at supper. As usual, the discourse focused on Emma's most recent accomplishments. She had recently won a major case at work and was being considered for a promotion. Our parents could not stop talking about how proud they were. When there was a lull in the discourse, I seized the opportunity. I told them about my illustration project, trying not to become too excited. My mother's response: "That's nice, dear, but don't you think it's time you got a real job? You're not getting any younger, you know." My father only nodded in agreement. I was crushed. I tried to explain that this was a legitimate position that may lead to other opportunities in the future, but they wouldn't listen. Emma stepped in, suggesting she could definitely find me an entry-level work at her law firm if I wanted a steady job. That was the final straw. I rose up, my chair grinding loudly on the floor. I told them I was weary of being regarded like a disappointment and that I was proud of my work and decisions. I said I couldn't live in a home where I was continuously made to feel inferior. My parents looked stunned. My mother began to say something about how I was being unduly sensitive, But I interrupted her. I informed them that I was moving out. That I'd rather struggle on my own than deal with their incessant criticism. Emma tried to be a peacemaker by advising me to calm down and not make rash judgments. But I could see a smug expression in her eyes. She was loving it, being the ideal daughter while I was the family disappointment. I stormed up to my room and began packing. My parents and Emma followed, attempting to talk me out of it, but their comments only reaffirmed what I already knew. They considered me as a failure and a burden. My mother even had the audacity to remark, "If you leave now, don't expect us to help you when you can't make rent." As I stuffed items into a suitcase, memories flooded my head. When I won a local art competition in high school, my parents didn't attend the award ceremony since it coincided with one of Emma's debating competitions. The numerous times they'd introduced Emma as our daughter, the lawyer, and me as simply our other daughter. They looked disappointed when I picked art school over the business program they wanted me to attend. That night, I fled with whatever I could put into my car. As I drove away, I noticed my parents and Emma standing in the doorway. My mother was crying. My father appeared angry. And Emma only looked smug. I felt a variety of feelings, including sadness, rage, and fear. There is also an odd sensation of relief. I'm currently staying with a friend while I decide out my future move. I knew leaving was a bold step, but I couldn't handle it anymore. Am I overreacting? Should I have stayed and attempted to help them understand? Or was quitting the correct decision? I feel lost and alone, but also relieved to be free of that harmful surroundings. The prospect of creating a life on my own terms is both thrilling and terrifying. I'm concerned about my financial situation, but I'm also excited to pursue my art without the constant criticism and comparisons. Any advice or help would be greatly appreciated. How do I proceed from here? How can I create a life for myself while dealing with the emotional consequences of leaving my family? And, most importantly, how can I start believing in myself after years of being told I'm not good enough? Update 1. It's been over 2 months since I left my parents' house, and a lot has happened. I wanted to give you all an update and thank you for your encouragement and ideas. Your warm words and encouragement have become a lifeline during this difficult time. After I departed, I spent a week sleeping on a friend's couch while I searched for a more permanent option. It was difficult, but I was able to find a little studio apartment that I could just barely afford with my savings and the proceeds from my illustration project. It's not much, but it is mine. And for the first time in my life, I believe I have my own space. The first several weeks were difficult. I pushed myself into my work, determined to show to myself, and perhaps to my family, that I could succeed on my own. I took on a part-time job at a neighborhood coffee shop to augment my income from illustration employment. Between the two jobs, I was working virtually constantly, but it felt fantastic to be self-sustaining. There were times when I came home fatigued, my hands aching from hours of drawing and pouring lattes, and I wondered if I had made the right decision. The small voice in my head, which sounded eerily like my mother, would tell me that I was dumb for believing I could make it as an artist. But then I'd look at the illustrations I was working on and recall why I'd chosen this path. My parents tried to contact me multiple times, but I was not ready to speak with them. I needed time to comprehend things and focus on getting on my own 2 feet. Their voicemails ranged from violent demands that I return home to emotional pleas wondering whether I was all right. It was difficult to ignore them, but I knew I needed time to think things out for myself. Emma also called several times, always in the same patronizing tone, telling me I was acting childishly and that I should come home and apologize. Her words wounded, but they also fueled my will to succeed on my own terms. About a month after I departed, something unexpected occurred. The children's book I illustrated was released, and it began to gain traction. The author shared it on social media, and it piqued the interest of a few prominent parenting bloggers. Suddenly, I began receiving emails from publishers interested in my work. I recall sitting in my tiny apartment, staring at my computer screen in disbelief as the emails arrived. For the first time, I felt as if my dreams were more than just that. I sobbed that night, but they were tears of happiness and relief. I got 2 additional book deals in quick succession. It wasn't a fortune, but it was enough to allow me to leave my coffee shop job and pursue illustration full-time. For the first time, I felt as though my career was taking off. This newfound achievement provided a lift in confidence. I began to believe in myself and my abilities in a manner I had never done before. I learned I didn't need my family's approval to legitimize my decisions or my worth. Emma unexpectedly arrived at my residence about this time. She stated she was concerned about me and that our parents were furious. I invited her in, more out of courtesy than anything else. At first, she was genuinely interested in how I was doing. She looked about my small apartment and inquired about my job. I showed her the published book and informed her of the new projects. For a brief time, I wondered whether she now saw me as an equal. But then she started using the same old rhetoric. She stated that, while it was good that I had some success, it was not a steady career. She mentioned how scared our parents were, and how they only wanted what was best for me. She also mentioned, again, that she could find me a position at her law firm. As she spoke, I felt a familiar sense of inadequacy seeping in. Something was different this time, though. I felt a sense of accomplishment as I looked at my work on my desk and considered the emails from publishers in my inbox. I lost my patience. I told her everything was good and that I was happier than I had ever been. I pointed out that, for the first time, I was fully reliant on my own efforts, with no assistance from our parents. I questioned if she could say the same, given that our parents were still paying for her apartment. Emma's face transformed. The veneer of concern fell away, revealing the same arrogant, superior grin I had seen the night I left. She snapped at me, calling me ungrateful and selfish. She told me that I was breaking our parents' hearts and should be ashamed of myself. I asked her to go. As she was leaving, she turned and said, "Don't come crying to us if this little art phase of yours fails. We won't be there to bail you out." After she went, I felt both terrified and strangely empowered. I realized I no longer needed their approval. I was succeeding on my own, doing what I like, and that was enough. The interaction with Emma prompted me to think on our friendship over the years. I remembered how close we were as kids, before competition and comparisons drove us away. I felt a twinge of grief for the sisterhood we had lost. However, I knew that I couldn't keep holding on to that romanticized vision of our relationship. In the weeks that followed, I refocused on my work. I began connecting with other painters and illustrators, forming a network of like-minded creatives. For the first time, I felt as if I belonged to a group that understood and valued me. I also began therapy to work through the years of emotional baggage I had been carrying. It's been difficult, but it's helped me realize my worth beyond my family's expectations or my professional achievement. I'm still not ready to speak with my parents, but I feel stronger now. I'm focusing on my work and creating a life that makes me happy. It isn't always easy, but it's worthwhile. There are still days when I doubt myself and miss my family, despite everything. But then I look at what I've accomplished in 2 months on my own and I'm proud. I'm learning to be my own cheerleader, celebrating my accomplishments without the need for affirmation from others. Thank you again for your support. It means more than you realize. To anyone else going through similar difficulties, please know that you are not alone. It is acceptable to pick yourself, pursue your interests, and define success on your own terms. Update 2. It's been about a year since my previous update, and I can't believe how much has changed. I'd want to convey what has happened and thank you all again for your ongoing support during this trip. My illustration career has taken off. The children's book series on which I worked proved to be fairly successful, and I've subsequently illustrated several more volumes. I've recently started accepting commissions for magazine covers and a few advertising campaigns. It has been a lot of effort, but I am enjoying every minute of it. About 6 months ago, I moved into a bigger apartment. It's still not large, but it has enough room for a real art studio. Being able to divide my work and residential rooms has greatly improved my productivity and mental health. The day I moved in, standing in the midst of my studio, surrounded by blank canvases and the scent of fresh paint, I felt a sense of success and possibilities that I had never known. My confidence has increased alongside my career. I've been asked to talk at a few local schools about jobs in illustration, and I've even begun mentoring a few young artists. It feels weird to be able to inspire people when not long ago, I was questioning my own decisions. Now onto the familial drama. A few months after my last post, my mother phoned me unexpectedly. She cried and asked if we could meet. I was skeptical, but eventually agreed to meet her for coffee. My therapist had been encouraging me to set boundaries and concentrate on rebuilding my connection with my family, so I saw this as a chance to begin the process. When we met, she appeared fatigued and angry. She began by apologizing for the way they had treated me. She stated that after I departed, they had plenty of time to think on their behavior. She admitted that they had treated me unfairly and regretted constantly comparing me to Emma. Her words were exactly what I had hoped to hear for years. But I felt conflicted. Part of me wanted to accept her apology and run into her arms like a small kid. Another part of me was skeptical, wondering whether this was again another attempt to force me to conform to their expectations. She then revealed a bombshell. Emma was sacked from her position at the legal firm. Apparently, she was misrepresenting her billable hours and overcharging customers. The company found out and fired her right away. I was shocked. The golden child, The ideal daughter had fallen from grace. I felt a range of feelings, including surprise, perverse delight, and, weirdly, concern for my sister. But that was not all. Emma had been living way beyond her means, relying on our parents to cover her expenses. When she lost her employment, she struggled to meet her costs. She had accumulated a large amount of credit card debt and was facing eviction from her residence. My parents tried to help her, but the situation was severe. They had already exhausted a large chunk of their savings attempting to keep Emma afloat. My mother broke down as she told me this, stating they felt deceived and had no idea what to do. As I listened to my mother, I realized how much pressure Emma must have felt all these years. Always needing to be flawless, always trying to meet our parents' expectations. In a way, I felt bad for her. My mother asked if I would consider coming home for dinner to discuss matters as a family. I felt conflicted, but I consented. I felt emotionally stronger and more capable of dealing with it now. The family supper was strained. Emma was there, and she didn't look like the polished, confident lady I recalled. She was protective and angry, lashing out at everybody. She claimed that our parents did not provide adequate support for her and that I had abandoned the family. I remained cool and stood firm. I informed them about my accomplishments, how I had established a job and a life for myself without their assistance. Our parents listened with expressions of pride and remorse on their faces. Emma rushed out midway through dinner. My parents were devastated when she departed. They apologized again for how they had treated me and expressed their pride in my accomplishments. They asked if I'd consider returning home. I told them that while I appreciated their apology, I was not interested in returning. I had created a life for myself and was content with it. However, I expressed my willingness to improve on our relationship and spend more time together. Since then, things have progressively improved. My parents and I now chat on a daily basis, and they have even paid me a visit in my new apartment. They inquire about my job and are genuinely interested. It's unusual to have them genuinely listen to me and be proud of my accomplishments. Emma, on the other hand, has cut off communication with all of us. Last I heard, she had relocated to another place to start afresh. I've tried contacting her several times, but she has not responded. I hope she's doing well and can discover her own path, free of the strain of being the perfect child. The entire experience has taught me a lot. I've learned about family relationships, self-worth, and the value of pursuing your own path. I've understood that success isn't about meeting others' expectations, but about being true to yourself and doing what makes you happy. I've also learned the importance of forgiving. It has not been easy, but I am working on forgiving my parents and Emma, not for their sakes, but for my own peace of mind. I've discovered that harboring hatred and resentment only harms me in the long run. My relationship with my parents is still in process. Sometimes old tendencies emerge, and I have to remind them, and myself, that things have changed. However, we are making progress in the right way. They are beginning to respect me for who I am, rather than who they wanted me to be. What about my career? It continues to thrive. I was just requested to illustrate a comic novel, which is a dream come true. I'm also thinking about teaching a course at a nearby community college, sharing my knowledge and experiences with those who are interested in art. Looking back over the last year, I'm shocked at how much has changed. There were times when I questioned myself, wondering if I'd made the correct decision in leaving. However, I now see it was the smartest decision I could have done. It forced me to stand on my own 2 feet and believe in myself when no one else would. Stay strong if you're dealing with comparable familial troubles. Stand up for yourself. Follow your passions. Also, don't let someone make you feel less than you are. You never know how things will turn out. Success and happiness can take many shapes, and the path to achieving them isn't always the one chosen for you. Family dynamics can be complex, and healing takes time. Be patient with yourself and others. Set limits as needed, but be willing to reconcile if it feels right. Most importantly, remember this. You are valuable, regardless of your family's approval or anyone else's expectations. I'm grateful for this community and the encouragement you've given me during this journey. Your encouragement has meant more than you realize. Thank you for being there for me during the difficult times, and for celebrating my wins alongside me. I'm looking forward to what the future holds. I feel like I'm finally living life on my own terms, pursuing my passions and developing important relationships. It isn't always easy, but it's genuine and rewarding in a manner I've never felt before. Thank you all again for your unwavering support throughout this journey. It means everything to me. Here's to pursuing our aspirations, healing old hurts, and creating the life we want. Falsely accused by my ex, I lost everything. Expelled and isolated, I fled, changed my name, and rebuilt my life in a foreign country. My ex-girlfriend cheated on me. When I discovered out and confronted her, she panicked and told practically everyone we knew that I had raped her in order to cover up her infidelity. I was detained during the investigation but was freed owing to a lack of proof. My parents had already shunned me, and the majority of my friends had withdrawn themselves. My parents believed I was a rapist who had just gotten lucky, even though I hadn't been proven innocent by a jury yet. My best friend discreetly assisted me behind my parents' backs, and I ran away. I had nothing to lose, no one liked or approached me, and my college prevented me from attending classes. They simply provided me with assignments via email and let me come in for tests. I moved as far away from the town as I could and found an apartment. After working several community jobs to save money, I was able to stabilize myself. At some point, I decided to change my name. I'm not sure why, I just couldn't handle looking at it anymore. This helped me start over. When I re-enrolled in university, I met a few new people, but I had no idea why I was doing it. I was deeply in debt and struggling financially. I somehow completed my teaching degree and relocated to a country on the other side of the planet, where I currently reside. I obtained a great apartment and settled into my new work. Eventually, I met the woman who would become my wife. At first, I couldn't believe her. I flinched any time she attempted to touch me. I fidgeted when she came too close. But she was really patient. Then I went head over heels for her. Eventually, she gave birth to our twin daughters and son. I adore them above all else and would go to any length to keep them safe. Given that I was a foreigner and had not previously been trusted, her family welcomed me fairly quickly. They treated me well, and for the first time in years, I remembered how it felt to be part of a loving family. Now, I live in a lovely home with my wife and children. We're happy. That is, until last night. I was playing PlayStation with my kid while my wife and daughter were in the yard. A knock on the door. My father was standing right there. He offered me a feeble smile and began speaking. But I slammed the door so forcefully that it startled my son. I quickly took him to his room and contacted my wife, requesting that she put our daughter to bed. She was freaking out, as was I. My father kept knocking. I broke down. My wife consoled me, then answered the door. She wanted to know who he was. He stated he was my dad. I had just given my wife a general overview of my past. She had nothing but pain for me, but when she saw him, she became enraged. Understandably so. She screamed at him for abandoning her. After she calmed down, I told her to let him in and stay with the kids while I spoke with him. He explained that he had been assisting my ex clean out her phone. While searching through her texts, he discovered a chat between her and the guy she had cheated with. She apologized for wrecking my life. She said that she wished to take it back. My father didn't address her because he wasn't ready to reopen the wound, but, quietly, he began hunting for me, determined to convince me that he finally believed me. I'm not even sure how he found me. But I don't mind, he's here now. Now I don't know what to do. I've been roaming aimlessly, considering my alternatives. I've come up with 2 options, but I'm not sure which is the proper one. Turn him away. Tell him to return to our nation and leave me alone. Reconcile with him and inform my mother. If there is a better choice, I'd love to learn about it, because I'm utterly clueless right now. I'm stressed out here, and I'm going to take the day off work tomorrow. My father is living at a nearby apartment, so I'll probably go to him with my response. Thank you in advance. Comments Gentius. He claimed he was doing your ex-girlfriend a favor by deleting certain stuff from her phone. Doesn't that seem odd? Why would he continue contact her? Why would he look through her phone? People who are genuinely attempting to help do not break into phones. This is an enormous red flag. The man disowned you, maintains contact with the lady who devastated your life, discovered the truth through snooping, and then tracked you across the globe? Are you truly prepared to invite this instability into your family? T23454, you're correct. Nothing truly adds up. It's a messy issue, and I despise being put in this position. I'm fighting to find the perfect words to speak to him. Random Questioners Master, Advice Giver 26. Oh honey, this was so upsetting to hear. False charges should be prosecuted and imprisoned. They destroy people's lives. This whole situation is completely ludicrous. The best advice I can provide you? Keep him out of your life. He was so quick to dismiss you without even having a proper conversation. And honestly, you're happy even without them. Of course, you can forgive anybody you want, but I couldn't help but question what his true motivation is for attempting to reconcile now. Good luck, and thank you for sharing your story. T23454, OP. Thank you. To be honest, I just want to use the eye for an eye method and keep him away from my family. I'm not a forgiving person, and looking back, he must deal with the repercussions of his actions. Ballistic pineapple. This is my first time commenting, so I can't say whether this is excellent advice. Honestly, only you can answer this. There is so lot to digest at once, and it has all been thrown upon you. I believe sending your father home would be the best option. It would allow you to decompress and gain a better understanding of what is happening. You can always contact him whenever you feel ready. However, being forced into this circumstance is not ideal right now. You have control over this. This is your life, and you get to pick how it unfolds. Take your time, consider everything, and make a decision when you are genuinely ready. T23454, OP. Yes, in the end, it will be my choice. I've accepted that much. My son asked me a few hours earlier who the man was. I couldn't bring myself to tell him that it was his grandfather. More information I know, it all depends on whether I want them in my life or not. I know I will never have all of my questions addressed. I guess I'm simply trying to make sense of everything, piecing together various responses from different people. Looking back, I'm still not sure why they abandoned me so quickly. Perhaps she fabricated certain texts. But, if that were the case, wouldn't she have reported them to the authorities? I remember them stating there was little to no proof to back up her assertions. None of this adds up. And frankly, I don't want to connect the dots. Sometimes it all seems like a bad dream. Thanks nonetheless, I'll figure it out eventually. Update 1. Hello, everyone, I apologize for not posting recently. I've decided that I will not reconcile with my father. I simply cannot find it within myself to forgive him. For those who wanted the details, here's what happened. The day following my last post, I went to see my father at his hotel. I informed him that I would not be reconciling with him, at all. He had tears in his eyes, but replied he understood. He told me that he had notified my mother about everything and had entirely shut my ex-girlfriend out of the family. Since several of you had asked, I addressed him about why he was still in contact with her in the first place. He stated she felt too sorry to leave us. Honestly, I don't believe that for 1 second. However, it makes little difference at this stage. Apparently, my mother did not take the news well. She asked for my phone number, but my father refused to give it to her. I'm not sure how much of what he said is true. To be honest, I believe most of it is an attempt to entice me back into their lives. But what happened after they threw me out onto the streets like a crazed dog? It makes me sick. My son eventually asked who was at the door. I informed him it was a colleague. When my children are older and we are facing difficult times, I will tell them the truth about my history. Everything is okay right now. This circumstance has shaken me quite a little, but I hope my father keeps his promise and leaves my new life alone. If anything else happens, I will keep you posted. But for now, I consider this to be resolved. Thank you so much for your support and good remarks. And please, if you know someone going through what I did, be there for them. Do not toss them away. Stay by their side. Even if they have to travel across the globe to find serenity. Update 2. I was living quietly till my father discovered me. What about that one event? It sparked off a chain reaction that resulted in this post. Recently, my family betrayed a vow. It made me furious. After much deliberation, I concluded I needed to confront them, directly. I flew back to my native country and met with everyone concerned. My mother. My father. My brother. Even the woman who accused me. I was nervous. What's the strangest part? I realized I no longer saw them as family. I recognized them, of course. But I didn't feel anything for them, as I do for my wife, children, and in-laws. My mother began crying, attempting to apologize. But I felt disgusted. My father soothed her. My brother maintained his coolness and opened the conversation. He asked how I was doing. I replied by ordering him to cease the small talk. This meeting was on my terms. I made it plain that I was not seeking reconciliation. I just needed closure. I warned them that if they tried to chase me, I'd contact the cops. I questioned my parents' decision to forsake me despite the lack of evidence presented by the police. They stated that they made a hasty judgment and that seeing me in detention shattered their hearts. I called them out. They did not strive to protect me. They didn't even try to hear me out before shutting me off entirely. I inquired about a comment made in my initial post. Why was my father even looking through my accuser's phone? He stated she instructed him to remove unnecessary data from her phone. That's when he noticed the conversation logs with her buddies. My father has always been technologically savvy, so while it wasn't a satisfactory response, I accepted it. Then I turned to my brother. Why did you never try to contact me? He looked astonished and stated he did, but I ignored him. At first, I did not trust him. Then it turns out he was correct. My brother had attempted hundreds of times to contact me and even sent me money to help me get back on my feet. But I never received his messages. Why? My mother had disabled my contact information from all of our phone contracts. She paid for my brother's previous plan, so he had no idea I had never received a call or message from him. So, when I was at my lowest point, absolutely lost, I was cut off from one of the few people who wanted to help me. Then came the final encounter with my ex. I asked her one question. Why did you do it? She stated she was afraid of what would happen. She claimed she never stopped loving me, despite everything. She claimed that each therapy session made her feel even more awful because she knew her charge was false. She even said she hadn't dated anyone since, expecting I would return to her so she could apologize. As if "I'm sorry" could undo everything. But even that was ridiculous. My father had seen chat logs of her with 3 separate partners while I was away. My ex broke down in tears and attempted to touch my hand. She had the audacity to want another opportunity. I was infuriated. I took out my phone and began showing them hundreds of photos. Pictures of my children. Their milestones. Our family travels. This is their first day of school. My wife and I wrapped our arms around them. I looked her in the eyes and said, "This is what you could have had if you hadn't been so stupid." I told my parents, "This is what you missed out on because you refused to hear me out." For a single second, I questioned whether I had gone too far. Then I remembered what they had done to me. I hadn't gotten far enough. The aftermath not. Everything about my experience was unpleasant. I caught up with my former best friend and his family. They were pleased to see me, and I was glad for them. They took me in when everyone else had abandoned me. One day, I hope to travel to my home country and teach my children where half of their culture comes from. But I'll never let them near my so-called family. My only family is my wife, her family and my children. I'd say the visit went fairly well. Edit. About my brother. Several of you inquired about my brother. After some thought, I decided to let him fly over and meet his niece and nephew. I was hesitant at first because we were never particularly close growing up due to brotherly rivalry. I also don't use social media, so he could only have contacted me through my phone number. But by that point, I'd already changed it. He never got an opportunity to contact me. What about my ex? I've left it up to my family to decide whether they want to contact the authorities. If they were truly sorry, they would report her. It's beyond me now. I might hear from my brother about it, but really? I'm just content with the life I've created. Now that my past is entirely behind me, I can finally relax. I proposed to my girlfriend, but my brother was furious as she was his ex. Months later, he suddenly knelt and proposed to her at a family dinner. What would you do if your own brother got down on one knee and proposed to your fiancée, right in front of you and your entire family? Sounds like something straight out of a drama movie, right? But this actually happened to me. And trust me, it only got worse from there. A few months ago, I met Jen. She was everything I had ever wanted: smart, kind, beautiful, and we instantly connected. At first, I kept our relationship private. But as things got serious, I decided it was time to introduce her to my family. One night at a family dinner, I casually showed my parents some pictures of Jen on my phone. My mom gushed about how gorgeous she was. My sisters were excited for me. But then Mark, my older brother, grabbed my phone, and his expression instantly changed. His face turned red with anger. "Are you kidding me? You're dating my ex?" he yelled. I was completely thrown off. Jen had never mentioned dating Mark. Later that night, I asked her about it, and she admitted that they had dated, but only for 1 month. Mark had broken up with her because he was bored and never wanted to settle down. Even though their relationship was brief and meaningless to him, he still demanded that I break up with her immediately. I refused. And from that moment, things were never the same again. Months passed. My love for Jen grew, and I knew she was the one. So, on her birthday, I planned a beautiful dinner with both of our families and closest friends. When I got down on one knee and asked her to marry me, she said yes. The entire room erupted in cheers, except for Mark. I saw the rage burning in his eyes. But before he could ruin the moment, my sisters immediately shut him down. Then, 2 months later, Mark invited the whole family, including Jen and me, to dinner at his apartment. It felt weird. He had been avoiding me since my proposal, so why now? But since my parents and sisters were going, we decided to give it a chance. The dinner started off normal. We ate, we talked, nothing seemed off. Then, Mark suddenly stood up. "I have a big announcement," he said, looking right at Jen. Then, before I could even react, he got down on one knee, pulled out a cheap-looking ring, and proposed to my fiancée. Right in front office me. The room went dead silent. Jen looked horrified. "Mark, get up. What the hell are you doing?" she snapped. Mark ignored her and turned to my parents. "Mom, Dad, don't you think she and I belong together?" My dad jumped up to grab him, but before he could, I punched Mark square in the face. He stumbled back, laughing like a lunatic. "I just wanted to show you that Jen doesn't love you," he sneered. "She's just trying to get back at me." That was it. I grabbed Jen's hand, stormed out, and made a decision right then and there. Mark was not coming to our wedding. A few days later, my mother showed up at my house, furious. "You need to invite Mark to the wedding," she ordered. I laughed in disbelief. "Are you serious? He proposed to my fiancée in front of me. You really think I'd let him anywhere near my wedding?" "He was just joking," she snapped. "You're being dramatic." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Then she dropped the bomb. "If Mark isn't invited, then I won't be attending either." I looked her straight in the eye and said, "If that's what you want, go ahead. But I won't beg you to be there." She stormed out, furious. 2 weeks passed. Then my mom showed up again, pretending she wanted to make peace. At first, I thought maybe she had come to apologize. But the moment I brought up Mark's insane proposal, she rolled her eyes. "That was just a joke," she scoffed. "You're overreacting," I snapped. "A joke? You call him humiliating me in front of everyone a joke? You call him trying to steal my fiancée a joke?" Our argument escalated fast. We were yelling at each other when suddenly, Jen got up to leave. And then, my mother attacked her. She lunged at Jen, grabbed her hair, and threw her to the ground. She screamed insults, slapped her, and even tried to scratch her face. I lost it. I dragged my mother off Jen and threw her out of my house. She banged on our door for 10 minutes, screaming and sobbing, before finally leaving. That night, Jen cried herself to sleep in my arms. That was the moment I knew I was done with my mother. I reported the incident to the police, but since Jen didn't want to press charges, they couldn't do much. But my mother wasn't done yet. A few days later, she waited outside my workplace and cornered me. She screamed at me in front of my coworkers, calling me a traitor. "How could you do this to me? You ruined our family." I stared at her, disgusted. "You don't want legal trouble?" I said coldly. "Then you shouldn't have attacked Jen." She begged me to withdraw the police report. I refused. Then she said something that truly made me sick. "Your sisters forgave me. Why can't you?" I stepped closer, looked her right in the eyes, and said, "They can forgive you if they want. But I never will." Then I walked away and never looked back. My wife declared, "Plenty of men want me," so I walked away, giving her the freedom to pursue what she believed was better for her. In the midst of an argument, my wife stated, "Plenty of men want me." So I left her to those men to handle. I never expected it to go down like this. It all started with a dumb quarrel, one of those minor, daily things that you forget about later but seem like the world is ending when they happen. She'd been onto me about something small, as usual, something about not putting out the garbage on time or perhaps not answering her phone soon enough when she was out with her pals. It was no big thing. Except she'd been carrying a lot of frustration lately, and I was the only one around to vent it on. That is when she said it. "Plenty of men would want me." She spat the words out, her eyes narrowing as she looked at me, challenging me to respond. The words hung there, weighty and piercing, more cutting than anything she'd spoken previously. We'd been through tough times before, certainly, but nothing had ever made me feel quite this way. It wasn't the first time we'd battled about something minor, but this seemed different. I wasn't prepared for the rage that erupted in my chest. Perhaps it was because, in the midst of the dispute, I understood she meant it. She wasn't just saying things to hurt me, there was truth behind them. A fact I could no longer ignore. The truth ached. She was not the same lady I had married. "I don't care about those men," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. But it broke. I wasn't sure if I was angry or embarrassed about how I handled it. I was tired, mentally fatigued from attempting to cling onto something that seemed to be slipping away. But I wasn't sure how to stop it. The tension in the room grew. My heart began hammering in my chest, like if it were trying to escape. I could feel my pulse in my throat, fingers, and all over my body. I wasn't sure how to calm down. I didn't know how to convince her that I was doing my best. I was trying to be there for her. But nothing was ever sufficient. She did not back down either. In fact, She appeared almost pleased, as if she had won something I hadn't realized I was playing for. "Oh, I know you don't care. But you should. Maybe you'd actually start doing something right for once if you did," she told me. Her comments were chilly, yet with a hint of something deeper behind them. Something I couldn't quite identify. Resentment? Regret? A sense of accomplishment, as if she had finally found the way to break me. I wanted to say something, but my throat tightened suddenly. I wasn't sure if I was trying to save the person I believed I was fighting for or the notion of her. The one I'd been clinging onto for years. The person I thought I knew. She looked away, arms folded, her countenance unreadable. I could feel the distance between us increasing. Not simply in the gap between our bodies, but also in the way she began to stare at me. Her eyes did not soften when they met mine. Like I was no longer the person she cared about. I wanted to shout. To proclaim that I did not deserve this. That I'd been nothing but patient. Nothing except the present. Nothing but here for her. And she didn't notice it. But what good would it do? She was already checked out. I could see it in the way she carried herself, the way she avoided eye contact. It seemed as if she'd already decided. I felt little. Perhaps she was right. Maybe there were plenty more men out there who wanted her and could provide what I couldn't. But I was not going to be the one begging for morsels of affection. So I left. It was not dramatic. There were no slam doors, yelling battles, or emotional goodbyes. I did not even pack a bag. I grabbed my jacket, slung it over my shoulders, and stepped out the door. Perhaps I should have felt more angry, sad, or confused. But all I felt was this strange, numb sensation of clarity. This was not working. She was not working. I wasn't working for her anymore. I wasn't sure where I was headed. I just couldn't stay there. Not now. Not after what she had said. It isn't like I hadn't considered leaving before. But this time, it felt different. This time, there was no going back. I didn't visit a friend's residence. I didn't call anyone to inform them what occurred. I simply drove. The kilometers passing felt like the world was dragging me away from everything. Away from the mess I'd gotten myself into. The silence in the automobile was like a shield. The only sounds were the hum of the tires on the road and the rhythm of my pulse. I ended up at a bar. Alone. It wasn't a classy establishment, but rather a rundown dive with the odor of old beer and fried food. But I didn't care. I ordered a drink, leaned against the counter, and felt the wine burn down my throat, as if it was washing everything away. It was the first time in months that I felt something, anything. The bartender gave me a knowing look. But I didn't care. I did not want anyone to know. I did not wish to explain. Then the door opened. Someone walked in. They grabbed my eye, just a fleeting glance, but I noticed how they stared at me. Not like a broken man. Not like someone who has recently left his wife, but, maybe, someone they could chat to? Perhaps there is someone they can be around. I did not know. And I didn't care. I knew they didn't see me in the same way she did, and for once, it seemed like it was all I needed. But I was not prepared to make any judgments, not yet. The night was still early. I just kept drinking, letting the hours pass, feeling a strange sense of liberation develop within me. And then, I heard her name. A voice sounded from behind me. She said she'd leave you? I glanced around expecting to see someone I know. But the man speaking was unfamiliar. Nonetheless, his comments wounded deeply. What the hell? I turned slowly, trying to figure out why this stranger's comments felt like a punch in the gut. He was seated a few stools down, nursing his own drink, his gaze occasionally traveling to mine as he spoke. She said she'd leave you, he continued, more casually this time, as if we were already having the conversation. My heart stutters. My mind raced to catch up and grasp what this guy was expressing. Was he speaking about my wife? How in the hell did he know? Had she told anyone? Had she been informing others? I wasn't sure what to say. I just gazed at him, trying to decide if I should stand up and leave or ask him to elaborate. Who the hell are you? I finally managed to speak, though the words came out colder than I wanted. I was not searching for a confrontation, but I couldn't control myself. This guy knew something, and it made my stomach turn. He smirked, as if he had been waiting for this moment. But instead of providing an explanation, he simply shrugged, as if the solution were obvious. She didn't think you'd leave, he explained. Thought you'd just hang around, put up with whatever she threw at you. My mind was whirling. He had the audacity to talk about my life as if he knew everything. What did he know? What had she told him? I grasped the edge of the bar to keep myself stable. But there was an uncomfortable sensation crawling up my spine. "Why are you telling me this?" I inquired, my voice a little more calm now, but the anxiety was setting in. My fingers remained tight over my glass, as if it were necessary to keep me grounded. He took a slow sip from his drink and continued to act as if we were having a normal chat. As if he were some sort of confidant. Or something else. He did not appear to be uncomfortable. "She came in here a few weeks ago," stated the worker. "With someone else." I froze. My mind immediately flashed back to every time I had doubted her faithfulness. Every tiny adjustment in her behavior. Every unusual excuse. "What do you mean, with someone else?" I inquired, already anticipating the response. The man's eyes shifted to me, this time sharper. As if he knew he had my entire attention. "I mean, she came in here with another guy. They were really cozy. She didn't even notice me watching. Guess she thought I was just another regular at the bar." I felt nauseous. I'd never had any tangible evidence of her unfaithfulness before. But hearing that from a stranger, someone who appeared so certain, felt like a brick slamming into my chest. I wanted to yell. At him. To demand information. To get him to return it. But I could not find the words. Instead, I found myself leaning forward, my elbows on the bar, as if being closer would make everything seem less real. "You're sure?" My voice was lower and almost pleading. I hated myself for asking, but I couldn't resist. I needed to know. The man leaned back and wiped his mouth with the back of his hand. "Oh yeah." She was laughing, touching his arm, getting pretty close. She didn't even care who saw. I could feel my heartbeat in my ears, loud and quick. My entire body was on fire. But I didn't feel angry. It was a deep, gnawing ache, as if someone had chiseled out a portion of me that I had no idea existed. I wasn't sure what was worse. The possibility that she had been with someone else. Alternatively, she had not given it a second consideration. "I don't think she cares much about you anymore," the man said nonchalantly, as if he were merely giving general advice. He gave me a look that made me feel vulnerable, as if he knew something I didn't want to disclose. I wasn't sure what to say. I could feel myself beginning to unravel. Piece by piece. Everything she had stated? The things I had disregarded or attributed to stress or something else. Was it all leading up to this? Was this the moment when everything I thought I knew about my life, my relationship, fell apart? I gazed at the man, hoping for a response, some kind of closure. But he wasn't offering anything else. He drank his drink, looked aside, and signaled for another. As if this wasn't a significant issue to him. I wanted to shout. But I did not. I left. I scarcely noticed the stroll to my car. The frigid air pierced through me. The engine hums as it starts up. It seemed like everything had changed in an instant. Like the world was no longer a place where I could simply glide along thinking everything was all right. As I traveled into the night, my mind was racing with ideas and possibilities. I wasn't sure where I was headed anymore. I wasn't sure if I was escaping from her, or simply attempting to escape the sense of betrayal that had settled into my bones. I eventually pulled into a parking lot. One I did not recognize. The silence of the night surrounded me. The only sound was the gentle hum of the car's engine. I looked out the window, attempting to make sense of what had just occurred. But something else was nagging at me now. Something I didn't consider in the excitement of the moment. What if I wasn't the only person who had left? What if she were waiting for me to leave, so she could finally make her own decisions? I wasn't certain I wanted to find out. But I knew I needed to. I spent the next 3 days in a blur, mostly driving around, trying to clear my mind. But the ideas did not stop. Every street reminded me of her. Of everything we had built. And everything was crumbling apart. My phone rang several times, but I didn't have the energy to respond. I did not want to hear from her. Not yet. Not while everything seemed so raw. Then came the message. A basic text. Nevertheless, it felt like a bomb exploded in my lap. "We need to talk." I looked at the text on the screen. My hand shook slightly as I read them repeatedly. I wasn't sure what she would say. But I could feel the tempest brewing inside me again. I did not want to chat. Not yet. Not while things remained so ambiguous. But I could not ignore it. I needed to know where we stood. I responded simply. "I will be there." When I arrived at the residence, it was really silent. The front door was slightly ajar. The silence inside felt almost ominous. It was too vacant. Too still. She sat at the kitchen table with her hands folded together. She seemed smaller than I remembered. When she saw me, her eyes were a jumble of things. Guilt, perhaps. Or fear. I could not tell. There was also something else there. Something I couldn't quite identify. She didn't look at me the same way she had previously. Not the way I was used to seeing her. Her glance was not warm, no connection. I didn't know where else to start, she explained, breaking the stillness. Her voice was soft yet steady. I owe you an explanation. I swallowed the lump in my throat. It felt thick. You owe me more than that. The words came out sharper than I intended. But I didn't care. I needed answers. I wanted something to make sense of this chaos. She did not respond to the severity of my tone. Instead, she groaned and looked down at her hands. I never meant for things to get this bad. But things weren't right, were they? I didn't know how to fix it, and maybe I wasn't even trying anymore. I simply stared at her, my thoughts reeling. She was not even trying. That is what it boiled down to. I had overlooked all those subtle signs. All those occasions when I should have asked inquiries. I'd been too busy pretending that everything could be mended. That we could return to the way things used to be. She took a deep breath. For a brief moment, I thought she may cry. However, she didn't. Instead, she proceeded. I didn't want to hurt you. I thought if I pushed you far enough, you'd be the one to walk away. It would have been easier that way, right? But you didn't. You stuck around. And I kept pushing. And then, when I met someone else? She paused. I don't know. It felt like I was already done before it even started. My brain was spinning. Someone else. The word struck me harder than expected. It wasn't only the argument. Or her snarky remarks. It wasn't only that she appeared distant and frigid. She'd actually been with someone. What the hell are you talking about? I eventually choked out. My hands were clenched, but I was scarcely conscious of them. You think you can just go out and do whatever you want and I wouldn't notice? I didn't believe I was living in a fiction. But perhaps I was? Perhaps she was. She looked up at me, her eyes full of something, regret. I never wanted to hurt you, but I wasn't happy. I couldn't tell you that. I didn't know how. The silence stretched between us. A chasm that seemed impossible to cross. All these years. All of the moments we had shared. So here we were. Sitting in the kitchen. Strangers. I stood up abruptly, my chair scraping against the floor. So what now? You just expect me to walk back into this like nothing happened? I shook my head, my frustration finally spilling out. You think I just forget? That I let you shut me out like that and then come back? I'm sorry, she whispered. Her face wrinkled, but she did not respond. Instead, she looked away, as if she couldn't take the weight of my words. I stepped back and ran my hand through my hair. Attempting to think. Attempting to breathe. You were right about one thing, I told you. My voice was shaking now, even though I fought to keep it steady. I did leave. You wanted me to go? And I did. But not for the reasons you think. She blinked, a scowl forming on her forehead. What do you mean? I felt a rush of bitter laughter rise in my chest. But I did not let it out. Not yet. I left because I finally saw it. I saw that you don't see me anymore. I'm just someone you're stuck with. Someone who will always be here, no matter how much you push. You made me feel small. And then you decided it wasn't enough. So you found someone else. Her voice was scarcely audible now. It wasn't like that. It was a mistake. An error. I scoffed as the ache in my chest made it difficult to breathe. You don't just make a mistake like that. You make choices. You make decisions. And you chose him. The hush that followed was smothering. Neither of us knew what to say next, because the truth came out. It was in the air, heavy and obvious. She'd betrayed me. And I had to make a decision. Can I live with that? Could I even attempt to restore what we had? Or was it simply too far gone? I turned towards the door. My body felt weary. My heart was broken. But something inside me stood taller than it has in months. I can't do this anymore, I murmured quietly. I'm done. I walked out the door without saying another word. I did not glance back. And as I drove away, the weight on my chest gradually lifted, little by little. The route ahead was unclear. It was not easy. For the first time in a long while, I was making my own decision. And maybe, that was all I needed to do. I spent 2 years in prison for my sister, but upon release, my family coldly rejected me, treating me as worthless. Get out! Get out! Get out! Seamus was furious, grabbing my collar and attempting to haul me outside. Don't touch me. I forcefully shrugged off his grasp, forcing him to stumble and almost collapse. Smack! Melanie walked forward without saying anything and slapped me hard across the face. Jonathan, you're no longer the lobby manager making tens of thousands of dollars a month. You are no longer a valuable individual. Did you really expect us to put up with you? She yelled down the hallway. Security! Where is security? When the security guards heard this, they raced over. Melanie pointed at me and yelled at the security officers, "How can you allow anyone in here? Get this beggar out of here now." The chief of security approached Melanie and kindly said, "Ma'am, what is the problem?" Melanie pointed at me again. "This man is a penniless beggar attempting to scam a meal here. Get him out." The security chief stared at me coldly and said, "Sir, please leave." I normally kept a quiet profile, rarely revealing my role as hotel owner. Even though I lived and ate here, only high management knew who I was. When I saw the head of security trying to toss me out so rapidly, I fixed him with a harsh look and asked, "Is this how you handle situations? Don't you understand the hotel's policies? We should not judge anyone based on their appearance or offend any guest." The security chief's eyes flickered with apprehension. He gazed at me uncomfortably, not daring to say anything. When Seamus saw this, he grew anxious. "Don't let him trick you, he's simply a broke ex-con. Throw him out." "Sorry, sir. We don't eject any guests without a reason." The security chief strongly declined Seamus' request. "This is ridiculous. So, what are you security men doing? Are you terrified of him after only a few words?" Gavin shouted at the guards before returning his gaze to me. "Jonathan, I don't believe you can bluff your way out of this. I know the hotel management. One call from me and you're out." With that, he took out his phone and called. "Mr. Feldman, it's Gavin, I'm busy." The call ended abruptly with a frigid response, leaving Gavin standing awkwardly holding his phone. I scoffed and calmly asked, "You want to talk with Mr. Feldman? Allow me to help you." I got out my phone and dialed Mr. Feldman. "Come to private room 777 within 3 minutes. "Are you out of your mind, Jonathan? You are a broke ex-con. Do not claim to be someone important here. We know what kind of person you are. Is there any reason to put on this act?" Gavin scoffed at me. The other relatives looked at me like I was a clown, with derision and disgust on their faces. Melanie wiped the sweat from her brow and whispered, embarrassed, "This is so humiliating. How did I raise my son like this?" James also appeared frustrated. "Jonathan, please leave. Stop pretending. You are making a fool of yourself and your family." "Exactly. Some poor folks have lost their minds and created delusions." Gavin scoffed. "He couldn't even get Mr. Feldman here. Do you think you can?" "That's ridiculous," Seamus hissed, his tone full of scorn. He glanced at me as if simply acknowledging my presence was beneath him. But, just as he finished speaking, a middle-aged woman in a suit appeared by our side. I took the fall for my sister and served 2 years in prison. But when I got out, my sister and brother-in-law were concerned that I would compete for the property and assist my parents in attempting to push me out of the house. 2 years ago, Joanna and Seamus were speeding and traveling in the wrong direction with my car when they collided and murdered someone. My folks approached me quickly. They claimed Joanna had a weak heart but had ultimately managed to marry. If she went to prison, not only would she lose her marriage, but her life may be jeopardized. They cried and asked me to accept the blame for her. They assured me that the entire family would handsomely reward me once I was out. I didn't do it for a reward. I did it because I loved my parents and genuinely cared for my sister. I made personal sacrifices for her, including going to prison, selling my car, depleting my money, losing my job, paying the compensation, and enduring all of the insults. But I never anticipated my heartfelt sacrifice to be met with such treachery and scorn. I do not comprehend. Isn't blood meant to be thicker than water? Why does family loyalty wane in the face of personal gain? Joanna's expression darkened with disdain when she heard my words. She responded, "I've already thanked you for taking the fall. What else do you want from me? This house is now in my name, and Seamus and I are expecting a kid in a few months. There isn't enough room. You have to relocate. We cannot afford to maintain an idler." In her opinion, 2 years in prison was barely worth one thank you. Asking for more made me appear unreasonable. Melanie interjected, "Nino, don't you understand? A man's fate is to marry and provide for his family rather than to rely on them. We hope to marry you off to a respectable woman and get some security. However, as an ex-convict, no one will want you. Letting you stay here is already something we're thinking about for nostalgic reasons." Seamus said, "Exactly. You've been in prison, so you'll remain impoverished indefinitely. If we let you stay, you'll drain us dry." He warned, his tone harsh. James extinguished his cigarette and replied coldly, "Jonathan, you've grown up now. It's time you recognize the value of giving to the family rather than making problems." Each of their words was like a sharp razor cutting my heart. Despite my intense disappointment, my eyes welled up. I stared at them and exclaimed, hoarsely, "No wonder you never paid me a visit during my 2 years in prison. I assumed you were just too busy to see me. But now I realize, you only regarded me as a moneymaker. You kicked me out without hesitation when I couldn't make money anymore." I cocked my head back, trying to keep back tears. Then I inquired, "So you're all determined to kick me out today?" "Yes," Seamus responded without hesitation. Melanie, Joanna, and James all appeared determined. Obviously, there was no space for negotiating. I saw no affection in their eyes. I nodded, my heart devastated. "Fine. As you wish. We're done starting today. And I hope you don't regret it." Finally, I saw them for what they were. These folks, who I longed for during my 2 years in prison, did not deserve my sacrifices. However, the $100 million I had intended to split with them would now remain with me. I walked out the door without saying anything else and did not glance back. Behind the door, I heard Seamus' furious roar. "You think too highly of yourself. What's there to lose by cutting connections with a broke ex-convict like you? If we let you stay here and mooch off us, we'll truly regret it." After leaving that callous home, I explored the streets alone for quite some time before finding a hotel to stay at. Lying on the bed, I gazed at the 9-figure number in my bank account, lost in thought. I used to believe I grew up in a pretty happy family. When I was having challenges at work, my father patiently comforted and guided me. When I worked late at the office, my mother would bring me my favorite supper. When it rained, my sister would come and pick me up at work. I felt like the family's most cherished young prince. I was always perplexed when I saw tales online about parents preferring daughters over sons. How can such families exist? How could they not love their sons? But now I understand that dreadful sensation of helplessness and disappointment. I realized I had always been a member of such a family. All of the love I'd felt was predicated on my usefulness to them. I was more of an investment. Their love was the price, and my money was the reward. As a result, the gifts of fate had always come at a hidden cost. They smiled warmly when I told them I could generate money while also providing a nice living for everyone. But now they saw me as an ex-convict who couldn't find work and had no money or value. Their love had evaporated entirely. Little did they know, this ex-con had $100 million in his account. I couldn't help but be a little excited, wondering how they'd react if the son they loathed the most reached the pinnacle of success one day. The next day, I checked into a hotel in the city center. This wasn't just any hotel, it was a high-end, vast operation that offered dining, housing, banquets, and even business services. It had 8 levels and occupied the entire building. The location, surroundings, and foot traffic were all great. Before going to prison, I worked as a hotel lobby manager. Naturally, I wanted to return to my previous profession. Only this time, instead of being a manager, I'm the owner. I spent several hours negotiating with the hotel's owner before buying it from her. That same day, I assumed management responsibility. From then on, I lived and ate at the hotel, utilizing every opportunity to study and build new management and operational tactics. Under my direction, the hotel's business grew to the point that reservations were nearly impossible to come by. I quickly became a legitimately affluent man in the city. 6 months later, while inspecting the dining department, I overheard Joanna talking in a secluded area. "This motel is quite popular. I had to plan my daughter's 1-month birthday party 2 months in advance simply to get a table. I've heard that only the creme de la creme may dine here. Joanna, you made it, bringing us to such a luxurious location." I stopped in place when I discovered Joanna had invited our parents and a large group of relatives to this private room to celebrate her newborn daughter's 1-month birthday. Melanie was showing off by filming videos on her phone. My face appeared in the shot as her camera panned to the door. "Jonathan! What are you doing here?" Melanie set down her phone and frowned at me. When they heard this, everyone in the room turned to face me, who was standing in the doorway. "Jonathan, do you have no shame? You knew we were hosting a banquet here today and followed us only to get some food." Seamus raced up and chastised me like I was the plague. "Who said I was here to scrounge for food?" I responded calmly. "What are you here for, if not to beg? This is a high-end establishment exclusively for the privileged. If you're hungry, search through the rubbish outside." "That's where you belong," she snarled, crossing her arms and staring at me with disgust. The other family frowned and glared at me, disgusted, as if I were an unpleasant fly. Joanna also spoke up, apparently unhappy. Jonathan, when you stated you wanted to cut connections with us, I believed you had some fortitude. But now you've resorted to following us for a free supper. It's just horrible. Before I could react, James joined in. Jonathan, I educated you at a young age to be self-sufficient and dignified. Have you forgotten? How could you give up your pride for a meal? I stared at them and scoffed. It's only a meal. It does not matter to me. You are really something, aren't you? Sour grapes. As if an impoverished ex-con like you could ever afford a lunch here. Even if you've worked your entire life, Seamus sneered.